Cervo is one of the most desirable destinations in the world. A beautiful resort on the Costa Smeralda, the glittering coast of northern Sardinia. It's not hard to see why the venue continues to attract sailors every summer to compete on these beautiful blue waters. Holding pride of place in the harbour is the yacht club Costa Smeralda, the prestigious club established by the Aga Khan more than half a century ago. Everything you need to create the perfect regatta, it's right here, which is why the Sailing Champions League loves coming back year after year to Porto Cervo. We're on the morning of the penultimate day of the Sailing Champions League qualifier in Porto Cervo. My name's Andy Rice, and flying in to join me is Mark Corky Rhodes. So Corky, we have got a corker of a competition coming up. We've had 2 days of racing already, and today is the first day that we actually go live on the commentary. It all wraps up on Sunday afternoon. We've had good breeze on day one, softer breeze on day two, and we're looking at probably fairly soft breeze for the racing today, aren't we?
Yeah, today it's a bit of a mixed bag. Whether you can see through the camera a little bit more, there is a bit more cloud cover around. Normally it's crystal clear, blue skies. We've got a bit of cloud cover looking out in the bay. There's potentially a bit of rain on the outskirts, and that's starting to play a little bit of a difference with the wind that we're going to have. And so the sailors, I think, and this is exactly why they come here, it's a beautiful place to sail, but it's different conditions. It's going to test the sailors. It's going to not just bring out the people that sail in strong breeze. It's not going to be the ones that sail in light breeze. It has been a full mixed bag, and that will bring the cream of the crop to the top. And so we'll wait and see what happens at the end of today.
There are a couple of teams that are a little stand out from the rest. One of the Swiss teams, and also the Italians who won in St. Moritz at the finals last year, Circolo della Vela Bari. They had a fantastic day yesterday, but they did get an OCS in one race. They were pulled out of a race at the Windward Mark after they were leading in the early stages of that race, but they were just over early on the line. But they're still lying in second place even after that. So the Italians, even though they haven't raced in a J70 since August last year in St. Moritz, they're right back on top of their game again, if they can avoid those small errors which often make the difference.
Well, and that is the amazing thing about this format, is there are no discards whatsoever. So if this is the first time you're watching, or you may be a regular avid watcher of the Sailing Champions League, not having a discard, the pressure's huge. You know, it's sort of back-to-back races. Everyone has a little slip up now and again, and that OCS, okay, it's nudged them down to second, but we know that later in the week, when the points really matters, that could actually start to affect them and could see them not step on that top spot. So it's going to be very interesting, but one little slip up from each of these teams, that could be their championship over.
Yes, although bearing in mind, it depends on your sort of what your approach is for this regatta. It would be lovely to win it, but also for a lot of these guys, the aim is to get one of those top 7 places that guarantees you a spot in the final in St. Moritz. So they were fairly relaxed about the fact they got the OCS. When they got the OCS, it did drop them down to about 7th or so at the time. So they were on the cusp, but then they came right back with a run of really good scores later on in the afternoon. But it does go to show all the tiny little margins count. It's worth pushing for the line to have your nose poked out on the boats ahead of you, provided, of course, you don't break across the line. And it's so intense. I mean, some of the racing I saw, I went out yesterday on the Matilda boat, the boat that the sailors hang out on when they're not racing, and they get looked after really nicely out there, it has to be said, and you get good grandstand view of the racing. I mean, you see leads perish in just one slightly poor jibe, where you get a bit of an hourglass in the Janica, and suddenly your lead, I saw it happen yesterday for the club from Cascais, they dropped from 1st down to 7th in the space of one run, just because of a little bit of an hourglass. So all those small boat handling errors can really add up to quite disastrous results on the racecourse. Yeah,
and that's it. These teams trying to put the time in and are trying to make sure that everything's set. Boat handling is key. The boats are all the same. Your setup, the racecourse is the same. You're against the same people. You know, it's all going to come down to boat handling, having a correct strategy and playing it out.
Well, let's see who comes out on top on day 3. Corky and I are going to be all over it today. So we're looking forward to getting into the racing on day 3.
On behalf of the Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, I would like to welcome all of the participants to the One Ocean Sailing Champions League 2019.
Well, I just got down from the roof of Yacht Club Costa Smeralda. I took the stairs, but Corky, you took the lift. Why do you take the lift?
Slight injury to the back, and hence why I was stood looking like I had a board strapped to my back in that sort of chat there. But we're doing all right, feeling better. Feel like you're looking after me, which is the main thing. So.
We'll keep Corky dosed up. I can't do without him, so hopefully he'll make it through the day. But meanwhile, working even harder than Corky are, of course, the sailors out there on the water here for day 3 of the Sailing Champions League qualifier. I should say the One Ocean Sailing Champions League qualifier. We'll get on to what and why One Ocean Foundation is a little bit later on, an important part of the competition this time round. I think this is the 4th year that Sailing Champions League has been coming to Porto Cervo, and you can always see why when you come back here, can't you?
It's an amazing place. I say, I think all the locals seem a little bit confused by this cloud and mist rolling in. It's something they don't really get to see. As I say, the pictures there just tell the story of that crystal blue sky, the turquoise waters, and why wouldn't you want to come? We always refer to it as champagne sailing all the time, bit of breeze, bit of sunshine, and that's exactly what the sailors have had. But again, the hospitality and support from the club is amazing, and again, what a backdrop for these sailors. But when you've got the welcome they have, the racing, the race course to be on, then it's a pretty special place, and you're going to continue to come back.
Yeah, but it is strange weather at the moment in Europe, isn't it? I mean, as I flew over the mountains from Stuttgart, where we changed planes from London Heathrow, there's still a lot of snow on the mountains, and apparently that you can still go skiing for free in some of the resorts around Europe, because it's been a really strange cold spring that we've had, and we often ask the question, why don't we come to Porto Cervo earlier? I mean, we're in late May and the place is only just opening up for business, but it's actually still not that warm here yet, not compared with what we're used to, and that seems to be affecting the weather systems and therefore the breeze that we've got to contend with this week as well.
No, it's a combination of the weather is a huge thing. We're noticing at so many events where they're guaranteed wind, go here, and so on. And we're starting to see very different weather patterns starting to appear at different venues. And, you know, I think sort of with the One Ocean Foundation and lots of things, there's some fairly pressing points to which I say we'll hammer in a little bit harder of what we've got to do. But it is a strange place going from all these dedicated slots where you expect there to be breeze. We are getting slightly different weather patterns, and you say skiing during the middle of sort of spring and summer, then it's a strange bit. But
one place that did get exactly what was predicted and what they said would be on the tin. It was on the tin. It was in Parma for the previous qualifier in the Sailing Champions League. That was qualifier 1. And I wish we'd have been there, because looking at the pictures, it looked like they had absolutely fantastic breeze. So we're going to see a recap of what happened in Parma and who won as well. Norddeutsche Regattaverein from Germany took advantage of sensational sailing conditions in Palma de Mallorca to win the first of 3 qualifiers in the Sailing Champions League. It was the first time the Sailing Champions League has visited this beautiful Mediterranean island, and after enjoying stellar racing conditions at the regatta hosted by Club Nautique Arenal, the 26 crews from 16 nations will be hoping to come back here in future years. The top 8 finishers have secured a place at the grand final in Saint Moritz later this summer. WSV Almere Central, Brando Seglar, Société Nautique de Genève, Club Nautique de Vassouat,
Friedrichshafen Seilclub, Karlovik Badelau, Kongelig Dansk Yacht Club, Norddeutscher Regatta-Verein.
So Norddeutscher Regatta-Verein, they're a familiar name in league competition. They've won the German league many times, and no doubt, having won the first qualifier of 3 this season, Norddeutscher Regatta-Verein will be one of the leading contenders for the finals that we're going to be commentating on in St. Moritz in late August, Corky. Looking forward to going back there.
Yeah, it's again, what an amazing place. Sort of all of the actual league stopovers, the qualifiers through to the final, all providing very, very different conditions. And yeah, we saw very different conditions there last year. Hopefully we won't have as much rain and snow and that we had last time. But again, very different conditions for all of the sailors. So you kind of settle into something. And this is what makes the Sailing Champions League such a unique setup. You know, the J70s run throughout the qualifiers through to the final. So about the teams getting settled in. Of course, the leagues all running in their own countries. But to finish out in, well, to come out here in St. Petersburg and Parma as a qualifiers, but to finish in St. Moritz, it's a pretty special finishing place.
Yeah, amazing places to go. Neither of us made it to Parma, but here we are both in Porto Cervo, and then you have the honour of going to St. Petersburg for the third and final qualifier. So you'll be going to Russia for your first time, is it?
First time, sort of, as I say, sort of should have gone last sort of few years, but other conflicts with bits have stopped that. But yeah, looking forward to, again, just seeing the setup. It's been there several times now. Lots of other events have been run there. And again, a different setup to what they have here, and a different, not open to the sea, more closed in. And again, the race course creates its completely own sort of strategy.
The river Neva really does flow quite strongly there as well. So the current has a massive effect on the racing, which obviously is something you're not going to have to contend with in the finals in St. Moritz. Anyway, instead of us blathering on about these wonderful places, let's you have a look at them for yourselves.
The best part is the high level at this Champions League, because always action. It can be also frustrating sometimes if you are behind, but I think just if you have the opportunity to sail in this high level, you can progress.
It's really close racing, it's right on the shore, there's a lot of things happening, so there are a lot of chances to win.
Aren't we lucky, boys, being able to go to places like that? And so are these sailors. Porto Cervo, meanwhile, we've got 24 teams representing 16 nations. You and I, as Brits who can't speak any other language, is going to have an awful lot of fun trying to pronounce the names of these clubs. So, again, rather than us try and tell you what these clubs are, it might be better if you read the names for yourself. So those are our 24 teams from 16 nations. Let's take you out onto the water, out to the race area. And we've got a third commentator out there, Hinek Zimson, who is a great sailor in his own right. He knows what he's looking at. And Hinek hopefully will be able to give us some insight into what conditions actually feel like out on the water. Corky, earlier today, you and I, we've been here to Porto Cervo many times. We saw fog rolling through, and the waitress was, I think maybe we've got Hinek coming up very soon. So let's go to Hinek now, actually. Hi, Hinek.
Yes, Hi, Andy. Yeah, we have some nice breeze out here. We have some nice sun. The rain left, and we got some nice sailing condition here in Porto Cervo. We saw already some action on the water, a black flag. The yellow boat was disqualified and had to leave the race because of the situation at the start. And we're just sailing with 7 boats now. But
wow.
We have some nice swell here. We have tight racing.
And Hinek, any idea why that black flag was given to the yellow boat?
It was they didn't do the penalty turn and didn't accept it, and the umpire said, okay, then you're disqualified for now, but I guess there will be some discussion later about it.
And do you think that they knew that they needed to take the penalty and they just refused to take it?
Yes, that's what I saw, and at the top mark the umpire said, yeah, it's over for you now. But I guess, later there will be much more discussion.
And from the drone shot, just behind you actually, if you look over your shoulder, is that the boat that you're talking about? Look behind you. Is that the boat we're talking about?
No.
Or maybe
no,
it's
the yellow boat is already down at the starting vessel.
Okay, I think we see it from another shot. Is it boat number 3? It looks more like a green sail than a yellow sail.
Yes. Yes, no. Yeah, it's boat number 3, the yellow sail. Yes, they're already down, and we are at the top mark now.
So, if we can identify who that is, we will do our best. We've got the flag on the back of the on the backstay, which someone is just adjusting now. But Hinek, what kind of wind strength do you have out there at the moment?
We got some nice breeze. I would say 8 to 10 knots. We got some light swell coming in from outside, and the sailors are quite fast. The course got longer than yesterday, and we got some nice sets, some nice hoists, big maneuvers, and the field is really close together. No big gaps, tight racing.
Okay, Hinek, well, we look forward to coming back to you a few times later on today, and if you can put us in touch with some of the sailors, maybe winners of individual races, that would be great as well. So it's good to have you out there, and looks like you're enjoying the weather out there. Thanks, Hinek.
Yes.
Back to you a little bit later.
See you later.
So you can see someone out there with a very big lead in the distance, as pattern quite often, Corky. Someone who manages to get a lead seems to be able to stretch that, whilst the pack seem to keep each other occupied and just make life easier and easier. And who is that boat that we see in the lead?
So that is the Italian team, Circolo della Valabari, with that lead. And it's one of those ones where, because the boats are one design and that you can easily get drawn back into the pack, if you can give yourself that little bit of breathing space, get to the front of the fleet, actually you're able to sail your strategy. You're able to get that bit of clear air. You can suddenly see how tightly packed 4 or 5 boats are, even the second boat, just getting a bit of breathing space away from that. But as soon as you enter sort of that pack situation and it closes in, then obviously the speed differences are so minor that actually trying to force any gaps all come down to the turning marks. It's about putting yourself on that inside line, giving yourself the opportunity to be able to claim that room at the mark. If it's just straight line speed, there's generally not a massive difference between the boats unless someone's found that little magic key for the boats. Again, as we saw just from that drone shot, the teams all rotate around us. As you were saying earlier today, was you were on Matilda, the team boat, which is a big catamaran where all the teams, they just climb on, they get their flags, they jump onto the boat, so that all the boats have to be identical. They all jump on, swap their flags, and off they go. So there is no tuning, tweaking it, it's just setting the boat as early as possible as Cercolo della Vella Bari cross the line and take that, as I say, extended lead. But it doesn't matter really how far you win. It all comes down to the same points.
Meanwhile, another top-performing team so far in Porto Cervo the last couple of days, it's the Swiss team, Segler Vareniggen Kreuzlingen. I'm sorry about the mashed pronunciation there. And then a much tighter race for third place. Another Swiss team, Regatta Club Bodensee, coming across. There are series leaders at the moment, coming across in third, followed by Pogon Szczecin. From Poland. That's a good result for them. Wessex Exiles from Great Britain, Sarro Boat Club from Sweden, Odyssey Sailing Club, also the other Polish team. So two Polish teams still about to come across the finish in 7th place. But we should remember not last, because Yacht Club Breitenbrunn from Austria were already pulled out of the race after that controversial black flag penalty that was put upon them by the jury, who don't like being defied. No one, in the end, you go up against the jury's always going to win. As the Clash said, I've fought the law, but the law won.
It's very much that, is that if they feel they've imposed a penalty, yep, they'll discuss it, but you're always better off just taking that penalty, getting it done, and then discussing it later. By taking the bold stance they have, has kind of forced a bit of a position, and whether they're going to dig themselves out that hole or not. But two of those boats that we saw, the top 3 boats, Cercolo della Vella Bari, after crossing that line and winning that, keep themselves firmly in 2nd place, just 2 points off Regatting Club Bodensee, the Swiss team that we saw finish 3rd there. So in that flight that we've just finished up, that was flight number 11 and the 3rd race in that flight. And so after that, those 2 clubs sit at the top spot. So we're just capturing those last bits. But again, I think, you know, we mentioned it earlier when we were on at the top of the club and just chatting about it, is that there are no discards. So again, let's just look at Yacht Club Breitenbrunn then, from that sort of section of playing hardball with the umpires. That's it's a bold move, considering, you know, that one sort of disqualification at the moment has pushed him down to 9th, and that puts us in a tricky position.
I wonder if we're being a little bit too hard on them based on maybe not enough facts. I'm seeing down on the results that they're scored as OCS. So before we're a little bit too judgmental on Yacht Club Breitenbrunn from Austria, I just wonder if they started early, they didn't know it. Otherwise, you would go back and you'd restart. They got to the top marker. Maybe they were pulled out of the race. And if they would... well, there was a black flag given. I'm not sure if the black flag is flown for those kind of situations, but certainly, as we're seeing on the scoring, it's recording them as OCS. So we may not know the full detail of that until later on in the day. Either way, an OCS with 8 boats here, an OCS is worth 9 points. So you carry that extra point that you would have done compared with, say, finishing last in the race. But Cercolo della Vella Bari, they just won the race that we saw just now. They got an OCS yesterday. They were pulled out of the Windward Mark whilst they were in the lead of Flight 6. So you see in 2nd place, you see that OCS for Cercolo della Vella Bari from Italy. But they're on 26 points, and now they're only 2 points behind Regatta Club Bodensee, who got a 3rd place in the race just now. So Regatta Club Bodensee being the most consistent performer, but if you were to take that OCS out and give, let's be generous, and give that 1st place back to the Italians, because probably once they got in the lead, they would have stayed in the lead, that's another 8 points they could have taken off their total. So they would now be on 18 points, and they would be leading this series very comfortably. So I suppose, Corky, from yours and my perspective, and from any neutrals watching online, we should be grateful for that OCS and the fact the Italians did have that rare mistake. It's really opened up the competition a lot more.
Yeah, very much so. And this is what I think's great about this format, is not having a discard means that every single race counts. You know, with the number of flights that you've got going on, is that at some point you're potentially going to slip up. It might be a slip up as an OCS, for instance, and pushing the start line. You know, I was always told growing up with sailing is that, you know, if you didn't get an OCS in your regatta, you weren't pushing the start line hard enough. And, well, you know, there's pushing it, and there's certainly with the penalty and impacting. And as rightly so, as if they didn't have that, then yeah, there would be leaps and bounds in front, which so makes a lot more interesting. But again, Regatting Club Bodensee, when they started this this event, finished up with a 5th in the first race. So again, it keeps everything tightly packed and makes everything sort of all tick along quite nicely. But again, keeps the pressure on all the sailors. Every single race matters. There's no, we can just coast through this one a little bit and hope's all right. Of course, this is the qualification. So, you know, when it comes to St. Moritz, then obviously it all sits a little bit harder and more pressured because there's only one spot you want to be coming away with, when here this is a qualification for that final.
Just halfway through the leaderboard and then down to the bottom of the leaderboard. So the two Polish teams, I'm afraid, sitting at the bottom of the scoreboard at the moment, which goes to show 4th place in that last race for Pogon was a good score for them, and they're going to need to get a few more mid-fleets, and if they could, one of the Polish teams could win a race, that would be fantastic for them. But the great thing about these events is you get to sail with some of the best in Europe and probably the best in the world, and that's the way that teams like the Poles are going to learn. So we've referred to this qualifier as the One Ocean Sailing Champions League qualifier. So the One Ocean Foundation is a fairly new organisation. Let's find out a little bit more about what they're aiming to achieve.
From the start, we've been saying it clearly. We have to act to protect the ocean, because human life depends on it. You are never too young to make a difference. More and more people are becoming aware of how much we can do when working together, adopting behavior to defend the environment. That's why we are spreading the ocean literacy, understanding the influence that the ocean has on us and how we affect the ocean is the first step to making a difference. Because in reality, we look at the sea without seeing it. We're not concerned about what is happening underneath the waves, because those problems are out of our sight, but those are the things that are seriously changing the possibilities of life on Earth. It's the accumulation of many pollutants and plastic waste. Acidification. It's the rising temperature. It's the reduction of marine habitats and biodiversity. The ocean and human beings are inextricably intertwined, but this doesn't seem to matter. The ocean also provides livelihoods for more than 3 billion people and has a huge economic value. If it were a nation, it would be the 7th largest economy in the world. We are ocean defenders, young but very determined to act, to deal with the emergency and really change the future of the planet. Every day, we commit to communicating, educating, raising awareness through sports, promoting scientific research. Carta Esmeralda is our code of ethics. We promote it to spread the commitment to protect the marine ecosystem in every activity. Only a change in each individual's behavior leads to a whole change. The knowledge of the problem leads to the awareness of wanting to change. We don't want our children to ask us in the future why we didn't do anything while we still had time. Today, although the time we have for change is running out, together we can meet this challenge.
Well, something that any of us sailors would care about. The One Ocean Foundation, organised by the Yacht Club Costa Smeralda and with the support of Audi as the main partner. It was only created in March last year, and it's got the backing of Princess Zara Aga Khan as president and the Commodore of Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, Ricardo Bonadeo, as vice president. And it's to bring much greater awareness that we really need to work harder to preserve the marine environment. Easy from the drone shot here to think all is well beneath the water. But anything that we can do, including we've been issued, Corky and I, with some reusable water bottles. But we do that already, don't we, Corky?
Yeah, very much so. It's a very simple thing that everybody can do. You know, get a water bottle that you reuse, you carry with you all the time, whether it's in your backpack, when you're traveling, whether it's in your car, whatever. It's very simple. Don't just go reaching straight into a shop and buy a plastic bottle, because as soon as you drunk it, where's it go? Straight in the bin. And so
we could moan about how hard it is to refill those water bottles at various airports around the world, but we'll get into that a little bit later on, because we've got just a minute to the start. This is the start of Flight 12, and we are on board with the British team, Wessex Exiles. So 4 young blokes from Great Britain, looking to cause a bit of an upset with some of the more experienced teams. And the Exiles are on the cusp of that sort of the top 7 qualifying. I think they're in about 11th or 12th place overall at the moment. But the points are close enough that they could stand a chance. So we've got just 30 seconds to go. And on board with one of the Polish teams, this is Odyssey Sailing Club, one of the 2 teams at the bottom of the scoreboard. So let's see their approach into the line. 18 seconds to go. Corky, where would you want to be on the start line?
Well, interesting. I definitely want to be more down towards this pin end. So boat number 4 and 8 are in a fairly solid place, because the breeze just clicking towards into a left phase, as well as a little bit more breeze on that. But you can see the biasness on that line. Big duck down late on in there. So surprised they've done that, because that scrubbed a lot of speed. So boat number 8 there, just coming away with a really nice position. Yacht Club Breitenbrunn. So after picking up that black flag, or OCS is still to be decided, but black flag obviously is that OCS. They've come out with a nice strong position. The tricky thing about pinning yourself towards this side is now they have no opportunity to tack. It's about breaking clear, being able to just lose that boat up to windward of you for when that first shift comes in. They are short courses, and so the last thing you want to do is be pinned to one side. The breeze at the moment, though, we've got about 11 knots of breeze, staying fairly steady. So a really lovely condition for the J70s here, and about 4-5 degrees of difference across that race course. So generally a fairly steady course, but you can see them just good speed and breaking clear now, and hopefully that would give them the opportunity to get that tack in. I would certainly be looking to potentially get a tack in sooner rather than later and bank that position, rather than pin themselves too much further to that left side.
You would think so. We're looking at Société de Regatta du Havre, which I thought was lining up for a really good pin end start, and then they panicked a little bit at the end. There was a lot of handbrake turning. They thought they were going to be over early. I don't think they would have been. And they really gave away a fantastic position at the start, and now they have no control in terms of where they are. They're going to have to wait, the boat nearest to picture, for the other boat, boat 8, to tack, which they've now done. That's Yacht Club Breitenbrunn. Now, as I said that about the French, will they get across? This is absolutely critical for the French that they cross, and it looks like they will do. So things are looking up for Société de Regatta du Havre. And now the question for them is, will they have room when they get to the top to be able to tack when they want to tack, or will they be dictated to by some of the other boats already on starboard? But having been a little bit tough on Le Havre, it looks like Le Havre on the left-hand side of screen, currently, normally according to the tracker, are our race leaders, with Yacht Club Breitenbrunn from Austria just off to their right-hand side. So the 2 boats that we see closest to picture now vying for the front of this fleet. And also the Polish from Pogon. We don't expect much from them because they are one of the 2 back teams overall in the scoreboard, but at the moment holding 3rd place in this race, so not too shabby from the Polish crew either.
Yeah, I'm just really surprised at sort of the boats down at that pin end. You know, you've got a fixed point, you've got that pin end mark to give you that real sense of, I know exactly where I am on this start line, and that last-minute handbrake turn to drop them down. Yeah, it has created that little bit of an opportunity to open up, but as I said, I think that picks up on that left-hand shift. The problem is now, as they approach this windward mark, if they are lined up with any of these boats that have taken that tack slightly earlier into that shift, they're all going to be approaching on that starboard ley line, starboard tack, and it's going to all start to get a little bit messy at that windward mark for them. So at the moment, they've looked like they've got a bit of breathing space, but again, a couple of, creeping in, obviously maybe a little bit of nerves and so on from that start. Coming out of that tack, trying to go high straight away into a high mode and losing and scrubbing a bit of pace. But Yacht Club Breitenbrunn at the front there are going to have clear space to escape. And again, this is what we saw in that last one with the Italians, just escaping at the front, having that bit of breathing space. So as long as they can keep their boat handling slick, this could be a nice, solid result for them.
Now, I wonder if the Austrians are thinking as they go around the marking first, are the jury going to come and have a word, or did we get away with that? Was that a good start? No one's come and told them to get off the line yet, and beautiful hoist there for the Austrians. So Christian Binder and his team well away, and then round in second place is boat number 6. That's Saro Boat Club from Sweden, and it's very, very tight in the middle to the back of the pack.
A red flag appearing on the umpire's boat, and I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't for the French team just trying to squeeze in. It looked like there was a small shunt and a spin there, so we see boat number 3. So just trying to identify.
Let's see what Hinnock knows. So if Hinnock can hear us out on the water, what observations do you have of the race so far? It looks like we've got 2 penalties and we've got one boat in all kinds of trouble. If we go back to the boat at the back, it's really struggling with its spinnaker at the moment.
Yeah, we see some 2 penalties. Boat number 7, boat number 3. Boat number 3 tried to do the penalty with the Jenner up, which was probably not a good idea. But they are starting to stabilize now. But both in last and second last place now. Was a little tight at the top mark, and the umpire said, 2 penalties for those guys.
And if you look over your shoulder, tell us about the 2 boats that you see at the front of the fleet.
It's the Swedish boat and the Yacht Club Breitenbrunn. And Yacht Club Breitenbrunn just jibed away, and the Swedes following, trying to attack again, because we are almost laying the gate now, and it's going to be a tight rounding between Breitenbrunn and the Swedish.
Hinnock, thanks very much. We'll get back to you a little bit later on. But we saw some disastrous penalties there from the 2 boats at the back now. But meanwhile, the Austrians, who I thought had quite a healthy lead as they went round the mark, are really being attacked by the Swedes from Saro Boat Club.
Well, exactly. That is that sort of that jibe in early, and this is where sort of not only your boat handling's got to be slick and keep up that manoeuvre loss and just keeping the speed through and your angles right, positioning and where you want to be coming into this gate mark at the bottom, making that call early. So there comes a jibe just across in front, defining exactly where they want to be coming into this gate mark, making it pretty clear they want this near side mark. So again, creating that separation, but being bold with your manoeuvres, being bold early on. But we talk about these penalties, and we've kind of scrubbed over it a little bit in the sense of that a penalty, we can see where it's drawn those boats now. JK Aurora, they were one of the boats that picked up a penalty, were the one trying to do with the Jenica still up. And again, now they're out of touching distance of any other boat. So actually, you're already lumped with nearly a maximum sort of points, and you're nearly out of the race. And they're short races, quick 2 laps around on this windward leeward course. And with looking at your overall leaderboard, you suddenly, by just going, do I be greedy? Do I try and squeeze in for that one extra boat? Or do I just play it safe, tack in behind them, don't break any rules? I'm 1 boat behind them, but I've got an opportunity to attack again. That little bit of the greed creeps in. The little devil sort of sat on the shoulder going, yep, go for it. And everyone's a competitive sailor. Everyone wants to jump in that and maximize every space. But sometimes it's knowing when to just go, look, this battle can remain. This battle can continue on this next leg. But if I do something silly now, then this puts me out of it. And this is where the pressure's really starting to creep in on this penultimate day.
Yeah, so hard coming back for those 2 boats at the back. Meanwhile, a big split between the first 2 boats. Austria went out to the left. They went the side that served them well on the first beat. The Swedes deciding to go out to the right-hand side and see if they can attack the Austrian lead from the right-hand side of the course. Now, we saw all the benefit come from the left on the first race, but partly that's because the start drives you out in that direction. So maybe there's good stuff to be explored on the right-hand side. But at the moment, I would have thought the Austrians, the light blue boat on the left, now we see them in full picture, I would have thought they feel quite comfortable where they are sort of middle left in the course right now.
Yeah, it's a fairly solid place where you'd want to bank and be fairly conservative in the sense of if you wanted to attack that left, you can do. If you want to approach that right, they're going to be already slightly in defensive mode. And again, for the Swedes, that was a good, bold maneuver. These guys made it nice and clear they wanted that near side gate. And for the Swedes to attack the other gate creates that little bit of an opportunity. Do the Austrians come back and want to then sort of pin a more defensive maneuver on them, or do they allow them to split and create the breakaway? I would definitely want to be mid-left, I think, with the breeze. It's going to be a bit tighter, but you can see it looks a bit sort of flatter in that midsection. It looked like that breeze has just softened. Top left, we can identify there's still 10.5 knots, so it's still nice and clear, but it's a tight battle between these lead two boats.
Yes. Now, it looks like from that last shot we saw of the tracking that the Austrians will be able to get across the bow of the Swedes on starboard. And as we see those boats converge, it looks more and more comfortable for the Austrians. So now the question for the Swedes is, how much distance have they given away by going over to the right-hand side? Are they still holding second, or can the Poles, who we don't really expect to see in the top three, can the Poles even attack Sweden for second place? But a bit of a distance loss for Sweden on Austria, who now are coming down and about to hoist the Jenica for the second time on these extremely short races. This is the sail for the finish. So nice big gap, whilst the Swedes in the yellow vests, the yellow vests are not about the yellow jersey here. That's just their choice of what they're wearing this week, are now really going to be pressured on this final run by the Poles, who go round in boat number one.
Yeah, now you can see how that, considering if we remember back to that first windward mark, and all 7 boats were all trying to, all 8 boats trying to squeeze around that top mark together, but now it's actually fairly orderly. They're tight. The racing's still really tight. They're only sort of a metre, half-metre gaps in between. This is the biggest split away from these boats here. But and this is what makes the racing so fascinating. Is just one poor jibe, one poor judgment on that side. But again, it's been pretty predominant looking at this race course, looking at the wind stats that we've got. So we're getting all our data from WindBots on the marks and committee boats. It's all being sent up to the cloud, bounced back down to the SAP Sailing Analytics. And it's what's providing us just this fairly solid route of that mid-left-hand side being quite a strong side to defend. And again, there's a pin-end advantage on that start. So that's where you've got to be bold on that start, make your call early. But if you can get that tack in and favour those shifts, then you're in a fairly soft route. But looking at that, a little bit of breeze just starting to filter in again, 10.5 knots, but we are starting to see that breeze slightly soften. So whether that will change up and we'll see some shifts come in, we'll wait and see.
Christian Binder, he's just out of picture behind his tactician Werner Ebenhober. At the back of the boat on the left is Christian Binder, former 470 sailor. I used to race him in the 470 30-odd years ago. He's been a professional sailor for a good part of his life in the RC44, in the TP52, but these days he's focusing on his sail-making business, and this, for him, is a bit of fun. Compared with the serious stuff that he's done in his career, he does the Sailing Champions League to stay in touch with the sport because he still loves sailing, and this gives you an awful lot of bang for your buck. You get so many races in a day, and the wonderful thing is you just fly down to Porto Cervo with your sailing kit, with your buoyancy aid, and the boat is all here ready to go for you. So it's a very low maintenance way of getting some really high quality sailing in. So after pulling out of the previous race, he got the OCS for starting too soon across the line in the previous race. It's a race win for Yacht Club Breitenbrunn from Austria, and quite a comfortable win for them ahead of the Swedes, still being chased across the line for second and third place by the Polish. But it looks like the Swedes have managed to hold off the Poles, but that's a very good result for Pogoń Szczecin from Poland. A third place for them, I believe, is their best score so far. And still to come across, there's some action here for fourth place. Who's going to get fourth place? It's Wessex Exiles pushing Société de Regatta du Havre. But actually, it's the Exiles that get across in first place. I think they've beaten Le Havre, who crossed the line, boat number 4, and then very close behind them. The back 3, they were a big distance behind those other 2 boats going around the windmill mark, so they've really made gains. And so Odyssey Sailing Club from Poland, also a good result for them in 6th place. Wassersegelverening from Sweden, they were in 6th going around the windmill mark, and they ended up, according to our tracking there, in last place. So there was a lot of place changing down that final run, which quite surprises me because most of that sailing down the final run was to be done on starboard jibe. The wind, I think, had skewed around a little bit. I didn't think there was going to be that much opportunity to attack, but we saw a lot of place changing just right at the last minute of that race, Corky.
Yeah, it was, as I say, sort of with that breeze softening, and again, one of the biggest cruxes in all of this race is when do you go with that final jibe? You know that instantly the boat just positioned off your hip is going to sit on that inside line. Look for that jibe simultaneously. Try and create any kind of covering, any opportunity to accelerate forward. The difference of your high and low mode, when to just come up, when to gain that little bit of extra pressure, try and create any apparent breeze, or when to soak low. And there is that combination out on the water and being able to switch in between that. But we did see a little bit of a battle between Société de Regatta du Havre, try and take on that inside line again with the Wessex Exile Sailing Club. They were trying to have a bit of a battle, and because of that, they were so blinkered and controlling what they wanted to do and what was going on in the race. They did 2 extra jibes in that centre of the course, which then allowed the other 3 boats to catch up.
Well, we are going to see if we can get an interview with one of the sailors now. So, Henrik, who do you have to speak to us? Can anyone hear me on the water at the moment?
I'm out in the water.
Hi, who am I speaking to?
Hi.
Hello.
Franz from Yacht Club Breitenbrunn, Austria.
Hi, Franz. Thanks for joining us. Now, congratulations on that race win just now. What was your strategy off the start line?
Going to the pin end and have max speed, and to the contrary from the race before we had in OCS, it works this time.
Yes. So were you a little bit surprised to discover that you needed to be pulled out of the race in the previous race?
50-50, yeah.
And so where were you lying in the race at the time?
We've been on the line and... pardon me, I didn't understand your question.
Where were you in the... what position in the race were you when the jury pulled you out of the previous race?
It was on the first windward mark where we expected to get an information if we have to get an information. And unfortunately, we get an information.
Okay. But you held your nerve and it didn't scare you off the start line for the next race. You got a really good start in the next race, and you must be really pleased with how things are going.
Yeah, we are. We get the line very tight, and get a good speed on the first speed up, and the right side with the wind, and it works perfectly.
And Franz, what are you going to be doing now? You're going to be eating some pasta on board the good ship Matilda?
If we go to Matilda and celebrate, and then we have one more race today and hope we can double it.
We wish you the best of luck. You sailed fantastically just then, so we hope you do equally well later on this afternoon. Thanks very much, Franz.
Thanks, Andy. See ya.
Bye-bye. So that was Franz Fellner sailing on board a Yacht Club Breitenbrunn, and that's the boat that he's going to be on board. That's the good ship Matilda. That's where the sailors hang out. And you can see some sailors getting ready to go out. Someone from KSSS from Sweden, the Royal Yacht Club. They're going to be going out and representing their club shortly. And at the back, and I can also see, I think it's Simone Ferraresi from Cercolo della Verabari, the leading skipper. Sorry, I think they're second place at the moment, actually, just behind Regatta Club Bodensee. So it's a nice place to spend some time. I spent most of my day yesterday on board Matilda, plying myself with free pasta and a bit of Coca-Cola as well, Corky. I know you wouldn't go near the stuff, but...
Oh, black magic. No, it's well, no, as I say, it's a fantastic place for the sailors to be, and this is how it works. This is we can see the ribs where the teams are poised, ready for the next flight, and as soon as that boat crosses that line, the ribs alongside, the next team are on board, flags are swapped, and off we go. And because of that, it just rotates through these flights, and it's about what's bringing it together. You've got 24 clubs all out there, all wanting to race, 8 J70s racing each flight, and what a place to spend. If you're able to sit out there with a whole group of friends, other clubs that you're racing against, have a little bit of banter with them, play a bit of a psychological game and start winding each other up, it's a great place to be. Also, what better way? Why would you want to be returning to the dock all the time when actually if you can be out in the water and learning from the other racing, applying it to your next strategy, win-win.
And they're super friendly on board Matilda as well. They really look after the sailors extremely well. And we saw a shot just then of a very nice looking yacht going out for sail. Looking at this shot of the harbour, this is taken from the roof of Yacht Club Costa Smeralda. Those docks are pretty empty, aren't they, Corky? Because we're just about to get into the busy 3 months of the season. But I'm just amazed that such a beautiful place, apparently the most expensive real estate anywhere in Europe, in the Mediterranean, and these places are only used for 1/4 of the year. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's spectacular, isn't it? But I think sort of we're looking through very British eyes as well when we come to places like this. But this drone just picks up on it. Look at the coastline. It's a beautiful island to explore. But as you say, we're out of season, and it's like it's sort of dial it on 4 or 5 days time, and bang, it clicks, everything opens, and all the marina's full again, and it's like sort of suddenly the whole season starts. But yeah, I'm sure if my wallet could take the thumping to be here, then I'd love to spend a bit longer here and check it out as well. But it's well,
I'm glad you were buying the cappuccinos this morning, Corky.
Well, that's me done for the week now. It's so no,
I've had to save my money for some toothpaste and a toothbrush, and if I can afford it and find a supermarket that's yet to open, I'll buy myself some underwear as well.
Well, I'd greatly appreciate that. The smell sits in the studio with you, but it's but hey,
I should explain my bag hasn't turned up just in case. It's not out of choice. Anyway,
we are going. This is flight 12, and this is going to be race 35.
The next race is presented by One Ocean Foundation. So just less than a minute to the start of the next race. We saw how powerful the left-hand end, the yellow mark at the bottom of the screen just then is. That's with the Portuguese, and steering that boat is Vasco Serpa. And Corky, you've done a little bit of commentary in the past with Vasco. I think he represented Portugal at the Olympics in Atlanta 1996 in the laser, that legendary battle, the first of many battles between Robert Scheidt and Ben Ainsley, the one that Robert Scheidt won. Vasco Serpa was 7th at those Olympics, so a very experienced sailor. And there we are on board with one of the Austrian teams, Monze. Just 7 seconds to go, and the pin end is there for the taking. It's going to be taken by Olandska Segelsalskapet from Finland. So a good start for them. Oh, they're going to have to shoot the breeze a little bit to get round the edge to the Finns. So again, we see a pin end start a little bit wasted, which again, very similar to the previous race. Now hands a bit of free space to Monzi in boat number 5, who I think have got a fantastic start, Corky.
Yeah, again, it's that positioning, trying to identify, wanting to be down that pin end. We all know that if you want to be that pin end boat, it's a greater risk. It presents greater reward if you can absolutely nail that pin end, but that misjudgment and just not getting exactly that point, we saw that boat just having to stick it up into the breeze, and that's caused them to lose a bit of pace. So certainly for the Austrian team, Union Yacht Club Monzi, they were sat up, they've got a bit of breathing space now, but again, we can see this left-hand side providing quite a dominant position. But his short courses, again, it's all about being close enough to your next rival, being able to go into that high mode. So this is exactly what the Finnish boat here is in boat number 7, closest to us. The Finns are just trying to squeeze up. You can see them every so often just nudging that bow up a little bit higher, a little bit higher. And all of that is just trying to unload what we call dirty air, disturbed air off the back of those sails onto the boat just off their hip. By doing that, it creates that opportunity to then be able to get the tack, because at the moment they are being held there. There comes that position. Not a great tack from the Austrian team, Union Yacht Club Monzi there. Bit slow out of that. They certainly will have lost a bit of pace. But now these guys are right out on that left-hand side, approaching in on that left lay line.
They got to that left-hand lay line extremely quickly, didn't they? I just wonder if the breeze has shifted round. But we see the right-hand side of this racecourse a lot more popular and a lot more populated than it was the previous time, which was very much the fleet going to the left-hand side. But it looks like they haven't quite got up to the lay line. So maybe Åländska Segelsällskapet from Finland, the most left-hand boat, is still doing okay, but it looks like a much more even race across the racecourse this time.
Well, just looking at some of the analytics come through, because of that pin end bias, and it's a reasonable amount, it's saying sort of 25, 28 meters sort of difference at that pin end bias, then with that, if you're coming off and you're not right up on someone's hip, then you can easily get bumped out towards that right. So I just think that a lot of the boats, because they're lining up, they're all being quite tight towards that pin end, and their lanes aren't great. We're seeing a lot of boats have to take that tack out early, causing them to sit in that mid to mid-right side of things. And again, these two boats coming back across towards the right are going to now struggle to find lanes on this left-hand side without sailing a long way out towards this side.
Boat number 2 sailing towards our camera position. That's the boat from Cascais, Vasco Serpa, really picking up whatever's left over in terms of free lanes. You can see them in the back of picture, boat number 2, but the Portuguese really being dictated to, as opposed to Monzi, who are still in a good controlling position. We're on board now with the Portuguese. Vasco Serpa at the back, looking a little bit grim-faced, maybe as he should, because he hasn't got a lot to work with right now. His tactician, obviously, it looks like his tactician took a bump to the head recently. He's got that bandage on his forehead. That's not looking good. That boom you do need to watch out for. But, so the boats on this side are overstanding the ley line, and they may struggle to find a clean lane into the Wimmer Mark. It's going to be a German team from Wannsee that go round in first place, followed by the Lithuanians, Nauticus. So out goes the pole, up goes the Jenica. Really good set by Wannsee, already with a kite set, followed round by the Lithuanians. And then extremely tight as we see the ports and the starboard tackers come round together. Will boat number 6 have got round cleanly, only just getting round without avoiding the windward mark, without hitting the windward mark. And at the back is boat number 2. That's the Portuguese, and they've not had a good rounding, except that they've managed to get down the inside of the two boats. So that's good tactical positioning by the Portuguese at the back. So there's going to be a lot of place changing as the Finns look over their shoulder, the ASS flag on the back of the Finns. It looks like the Finns, who I thought maybe had a chance of leading around the Wimmer Mark, are now being swallowed up by the pack.
Well, again, it all was that sort of positioning coming in towards that windward mark. Just see a flag. There's a penalty being applied. Just trying to pick up. It is to the Swiss. We saw a flag go up. Let's see if we can get a little bit more info and see if we can go out to Hinnock and see if we can hear what happened again. Another busy windward mark. But Hinnock, if you can hear us, can you explain what happened with that penalty?
Yes. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you, Hinnock.
Yeah, the Swiss guy. Oh, perfect. Yeah, it was really tight. Everybody was fighting for the left lane. There was no space. And yeah, the Finns lost a lot because of those tight battles. And yeah, Union Club Monse gained into third place coming from the left side. But the green boat, the Swiss boat, didn't quite respected the rights of the other boats and yeah, did the penalty turn now, but it's in last place, far behind the pack. And we are approaching now the gate with still the Verein Seglers am Wannsee leading.
Thanks very much, Hinnock. So the boat that we've been talking about, the Swiss boat, now at the back after taking that penalty. Bear in mind that Kreuzlingen won the first 3 heats of the competition back on Thursday. And they've done pretty well recently. Their last 2 places were first and second. So now for the Swiss to be lying in 8th place, it now puts them back only just above the drop zone. They're in 6th place. And remember, only the top 7 go through to the finals in St. Moritz later on this year. So the Swiss really bouncing all over the scoreboard from first to last. And a lot of work for the Swiss to do. Already up onto the second beat. And the Germans, Wannsee sailing out of picture to the left-hand side. Monze also doing well from Austria. And then Nauticus from Lithuania. This is a very good race for the Lithuanians, who we wouldn't necessarily expect to see up in the top few. But the green boat chasing the rest of the fleet are the Swiss, who we expect to see better of. We're on board with Cascais right now. Vasco Serpa steering the boat out of the leeward mark.
And that position when he came round that windward mark, sitting on the hip of inside everyone else, gave him this position here where he was able just to jibe inside the Swedish pair, just tacking out now. So he's gained that extra little bit of place already just because of his positioning at the windward mark. So this is, you know, what's magic about sailing is that you're thinking so far in front. It's like a game of chess. It's not right. So exactly that. His position at the windward mark gave him the opportunity to take that extra boat at that gate mark. So it all links in. It's not a matter of, right, I'm now thinking about this next leg. I'm now thinking about this. You're already trying to think far enough in front. How am I positioning? If I'm over towards the right-hand side, if I come in on the right-hand ley line, who am I going to be contending with? Will I get tacked on? Will I get dirty air? Will there be space? But what we've seen time and time again, and we're only a few races in, is that first windward mark. Everyone is willing to basically pretty much play Russian roulette with that windward mark, and it's I'm just quite surprised at it. Rather than, you know, we see it a lot in catamaran racing where they're happy just to kind of punch over that ley line to allow that inside line for boats to squeeze in to make sure they don't pick up any penalties with the boat slowing down into attack. In a way, unless you've got a really clear route through on that port hand ley line or port route into that windward mark, I would wanting to be leaving a bucket load more space so that if you did tack and someone was coming in on starboard, there was that inside line for them. You admit, fine, they might gain that inside line and that's that battle still going on. But as soon as you pick up a penalty there, as you say, it suddenly lumps you with such a harsh penalty because of how tight the racing is. Going from what could be a second or a third down to 8th is, you know, again, it's a hard-hitting penalty. When in certain other fleet racing, if we look at Olympic sort of racing and picking up and just doing a 2-turn penalty or a 1-turn penalty, then actually you're still very much in the mix. Here, it could be first to last in a matter of moments.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks this time, though, that the boats on port tack coming in from the left-hand side are going to have sufficient lead to be able to get across. Certainly, we can say that for Wannsee in the lead. It may be a little bit harder for Monse, who we're just on board with just then, to say whether they're going to be able to get across. So now that we're seeing that cross beginning to happen at the windward mark as the leaders go round on board Vonze. But behind them, the battle for second and third, potentially a lot closer. Will Monze be able to get around cleanly in front of Nauticus? I wouldn't tack in there, boys. Oh, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure that Monze did enough to keep clear, and I think that the jury might have something to say about this to Monze. Will boat number 5 be told to do a spin? Will Lithuania be able to move ahead into second place? You can see the jury up behind them. No flag being flown.
We're waiting for this. They're right behind them. Surely there's got to be some... No, they've peeled off. That.
Well, maybe the
Here's
Lithuanians...
another umpire turned up behind them. So whether they're waiting... So there's an umpire rib just straight behind these boats, right alongside them. I'm stunned if no penalty was handed out then. And again, that basically came back to exactly my point. If they had actually carried on port... that would have given them space to squeeze inside and no penalty infringed. But because they went for that tack right in front, yeah, I'm with you on that, Andy.
Meanwhile, look at this. I mean, are these boats going to finish 5th or are they going to finish last? I mean, there's just nothing to choose between the back of the pack. So we got 2 interesting battles going on. We got the battle for 2nd and 3rd, and we got the battle for 5th to 8th place. And remember, whether you come 2nd or 3rd, or whether you come 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th, it's all points. It doesn't really matter. There's a bit more ego riding on the line when it's a battle for 2nd or 3rd. But really, the battles at the back of the fleet matter just as much because, as you said earlier, Corky, there are no discarded races. You count every single race that you do in your scoreline. You can't drop your worst race. So every point counts. Doesn't matter where you are in this fleet. As we see Vonze staying well ahead of all the trouble, able to enjoy a beautiful roll jibe, probably their last jibe before they go across the finish. And as we so often see, a very comfortable win for the leader of these races. But all hell is breaking loose behind them. And that's a beautiful shot of just how many battles are still yet to be played out. The battle between Lithuania and Monze in 2nd and 3rd place.
Well, the battle there for 2nd and 3rd is really interesting with Sailing Club Nauticus trying to stay on that inside line and have jibe in front of Union Club Monze, and that could be the deciding factor as the Germans take the win. Very subdued handshake, very pleased with themselves there, ready for the next flight.
You can tell that it means something to them, though, because the Italians, Cioccola della Velabari, when they win a race, there's barely any acknowledgement of it. I mean, they're just so used to winning. It's just, oh yeah, just shrug your shoulders and just won another race. But I mean, Vonze, they're actually doing extremely well. We're coming into that final now. So who's going to get 2nd place across the line? It looks like it's Nauticus. So Nauticus have managed to turn over Monze, and so they deserve to do, because I think Monze were a little bit lucky to get away with that. But it was Nauticus that crossed the finish line in 2nd place ahead of Monze, despite what the tracker says.
Well, it was that inside line they took. They took that jibe early and they soaked low, but this is going to be down to the wire here. Late jibe. This is going to come down to their boat handling. Can they hold it? They're soaking very low.
So will that grey Jenica now flogging as it goes past the yellow buoy do just enough to get 3rd place? Yes, it will be. Orlanza Segelsalskapet, followed by boat number 6. It's the boat club from Sweden, and then the green boat, Kreuzlingen. So green got back up to 6th place after being dead last. And Cascais, who we thought were maybe going to be able to pull through, ended up with 7th. And then the Norwegians, Lavik Seilforening, ending up in 8th place. So all kinds of place changing. And how the Norwegians dropped so far back, I don't know if they had to take a penalty on the final run, but the Norwegians that we see there dropped back an awful long way. And still seeing that Monze is recorded as 2nd boat in that race. I'm not sure about that. I really think that Nauticus were the 2nd boat in that race.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also just going back to your last point, sort of about the Norwegians, Lavik Seilforening, they basically did pick up a penalty up by that windward mark, and just looking at the tracker, were spinning. So again, what that penalty was defined by, whether a rule breakage at that windward mark or something the umpires saw there, but certainly they weren't happy with, and that's what saw them sink to the back. But yeah, completely agree with that. Now, the place changes. Let's have a look at that leaderboard and just see whether it's picked up on... so the leaderboard has picked up on it, that so on that final leaderboard, that it does put Mondensi into third. So it did go.
Okay, so Monzi in third, Nauticus from Lithuania in second, and winner of that race was Vonzi, who are now in third place overall. And they've only once scored outside the top three of any of their races in their second race on the first race of the day of the competition back on Thursday. They got a fifth place. Apart from that, all their scores in the top three of these races, and that's surely got to be a race-winning move, you would think, except that Cercolo della Velabari, all their scores inside the top two, except for one third place and one OCS. So we are waiting for the switch over into the next race, and we can see, it looks like one of the Dutch teams. I just love these acronyms, Corky. I mean, you can barely fit the whole flag into the name of these clubs onto the flag. Anyway, we're going to do some analytics of the previous race, I understand.
Yeah, well, generated by the SAP Sailing Analytics. Let's have a look, and we try and simplify sailing as much as we possibly can. And the three key areas that obviously will impact on your racing is the distance, maneuvers, and speed. And here's a great input of what you're looking for. So, of course, if you sail a shorter distance, then you're hopefully going to make your race course a lot shorter. You do it in the quickest speed, then you're certainly going to be towards the front. And again, maneuvers. We look at maneuvers because, again, we have to take it with a pinch of salt depending on how shifty the conditions are, where you were on the start line and trying to get out of bad air. But if we look at the top boat there, okay, top speed or one of the on equal top speeds, so they've done that. Maneuvers are short. And, of course, distance. So, again, if your speed is good, you're minimizing distance and you're minimizing maneuvers, the likelihood you're going to be somewhere close towards that front. Easier said than done. Once you're up at the front, you can do less maneuvers, and you're more likely to hit a slightly stronger speed because you've got no one around you impacting that as much. But certainly those are what the three things a lot of sailors are trying to look for. And, of course, you can look down and go, well, look, in the finish, they did a really nice short distance, but with added maneuvers and suddenly nearly half a knot slower on boat speed, then it's going to impact. So again, it's a balance between those three things, and that hopefully should tie into trying to simplify sailing. You're trying to minimize distance, minimize maneuvers, maximize speed.
And that shorter distance of Farin Seglerhaus and Vanze suggests to me that maybe the left-hand side of the track was a shorter route up the course. Maybe the wind shift on that side helped them sail a shorter distance. Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, that's where we're doing our commentary from. That's a shot that you see from the roof of Yacht Club Costa Smeralda. Beautiful yacht club. Also one of the most famous and one of the most influential. So many important regattas take place here each season.
Racing obviously is the icing on the cake, but just taking part in it is fantastic.
Everyone has a great time. All of us want to come back next year.
Yeah, Costa Smeralda, it has become a mecca for sailing over the last 50 years. It's just over, I think it's 52 years old, this club, established by the Aga Khan back in 1967. And yeah, one of the sailors just then said, we'll be back next year. Of course you will. I mean, why wouldn't you? Especially sailing those kind of maxi yachts, which probably the Yacht Club Costa Smeralda is most famous for hosting. The Maxi World Championships, which happen here each year, the Rolex Swan Cup, the Lora Piana Regatta. And these boats are probably about the smallest boats that are ever hosted at the Yacht Club Costa Smeralda. It's very much a big boat venue, but it's great for these sailors, some of whom, it should be said, are also maxi sailors in other parts of their jobs. But they love sailing on the J70s because it's reconnecting with the real grassroots of the sport. It's not about throwing money at the problem. It's about how good are you on the start line, how good are you at communication, manoeuvres, boat handling, all the basics that still go into maxi yacht racing, but with not quite as glamorous, it has to be said, but also maybe back to the real nuts and bolts of what makes sailing such a great competitive sport.
Well, exactly that. It's a fairly, in the world of sailing, a cheap way, and as we said, a way of maximising huge amounts of racing. You're on the race course. Again, you don't have a team, a support team all around you. These boats are all maintained, looked after. You jump from boat to boat. You don't sail the same number all the time. You're rotating around in the flight, so they've all got to be the same. And we can see on shore here, this is one of the support teams here, the rig boat alongside, just trying to make a few amendments to one of these boats and get it set. But this is it. The racing's the same. It's one design. It's not handicap. You haven't had a team where you've practiced and practiced and practiced on the same waters. You're all coming out. You've done your qualifications, your league racing. But again, the leagues don't necessarily stick with the J70s. They may have moved around in different classes depending on what's in different countries. And so with that, these teams might be sailing completely different boats, and some of these teams, it might be the first time they're stepping into sort of a J70 to compete. So suddenly that's just mixing it up. But you then look at the maxis and the team are very different. You've got a whole team, a support team, and potentially you've done multiple regattas back to back. But as you say, very pure, exactly what's great about racing, one design racing, tight racing on a short course in beautiful conditions. Then, yeah.
Well, the Dutch that we're on board with here, apparently there's a problem on that boat that needs resolving. So we've got a bit of time to the next start while the rigging crew, the repair team, effect whatever kind of repairs onto the Dutch boat that need to take place. So we're going to find out a little bit more about the One Ocean Foundation that we were talking about earlier.
The mission of the One Ocean Foundation is to accelerate solutions concerning marine pollution, inspiring international leaders, promoting the blue economy, and spreading a culture of sustainability and preservation of the marine environment. The initiative is strongly supported by Princess Zara Aga Khan.
We think it's our responsibility as Yacht Club, as passionate people on the live basically with their passion from the water, to really protect it for the next generations. And we're trying to create a community to really create awareness. And so the Costa Smeralda is a basic commitment that every one of us can do. I mean, we can change our habits from tomorrow if we want to, even today.
We need to clean water to do our sports, but also for other reasons it's hugely important to take care of the environment in which we sport, but also in which we live. And for that reason it's hugely important that we start doing a better job in keeping all the oceans clean.
Well, we all depend on the planet. I think it's essential that some companies and sailors and all people around the world pay attention to the plastic pollution of the ocean. This event is a fantastic place to reach a lot of people. I think it's great that we also got this bottle from One Ocean here, so we can fill it with water.
You can't change from one day to the other, but I think if you start the process, that's the important thing. The more clubs can join in our mission, the better it is.
Great to see the sailors getting behind the One Ocean Foundation. And one of the sailors there interviewed was Marieke Pooley. She's on board this boat now, which looks like it's up and running. This was the boat that we were waiting to get repaired. Looks like the Dutch will be ready to go racing very shortly. That's the race committee boat. And the breeze is holding up really nicely. Corky, we got 4 flights that they're getting through today, and each flight takes roughly an hour to get through. That only leaves us with 2 flights tomorrow for the final day. Why such a short day on the final day?
Well, there was a slight concern about what this breeze is going to do. As I say, we chatted about it a little earlier, about this fog and mist rolling in and a bit of confusion for the locals. We don't see this, we don't get this. Well, there is due to be rain later on coming in this evening and through till tomorrow. And because of that, there is a slight concern of what that's going to do to the breeze, whether it squashes and dampens down that breeze or whether it's actually going to increase it. But again, we've got the joys of sailing, but we're at either end of the spectrum. If there's no wind, we're not sailing. If there's too much wind, we're not sailing. And so there's that balance point of a window of opportunity. And so what they've done is they've managed to get an extra flight in yesterday, and by doing that, we've got 4 flights today, and once we've got through those 4 flights, it will leave 2 tomorrow. So fingers crossed, no matter what the weather throws at us, we'll be able to get through those 2.
Yeah. Rain, you just don't hear about rain in Porto Cervo. Coming back to what we were saying earlier about the strange weather in Europe, I don't think this place knows what to do with rain. It's never heard of rain. It hasn't even got a word for it.
It's not really set up for it or anything, so we could find anything being thrown at us here. And but I'm sure the hospitality, everything will continue on. The sailors, well, we're used to a bit of rain. Most of us are all from the wonderful European places where a lot of the time it rains most of the time. So from that, we're all hardened to it. But again, rain, we're not worried about that. You're going to get wet while racing. But interesting, bit of a procession going on, driving around that pin end, just identifying exactly where they want to be on this line. Just over 2 minutes to this start. So at this point, again, your boat, you've done the setup, you've jumped in, you've got yourself settled back in. This breeze back up a little bit by about a knot or so, up to about 12 knots. But you can look at the race course in this drone shot. It's a great way to be able to see. There's not a lot of land mass or any topography in that sort of sense to impact what the breeze is doing. It's pretty low level stuff and filter through, which is why we're not seeing the wind move around too much. It's generally fairly steady. The consistency as well of the velocity has been pretty good. So at the moment, it is all planning to get towards that start line. And so we are flight number 12, and this is going to be race 36.
The next race is presented by SAP.
I'm particularly looking forward to this race because we've got the top 2 in the series overall, the 2 hottest teams so far in this regatta competing against each other. Watch out for boat number 1. That's Regatta Club Bodensee. So boat number 1 is also first overall. And then we've got Cercolo della Velabari, the reigning champions from last year, in second overall at the moment. They're in boat number 4. We've got 24 seconds to go. We've got other hot teams in here as well. Ara and ZV Massenroer from the Netherlands. They've won quite a few races. But really the competition, the race that I want to see is between boat number 1 and boat number 4, between the Swiss and the Italians. So this is almost like a double pointer in that respect. The pin end, very clear at this end. Boat 6 got it all to themselves. Will that be a clear start? It looks like it is a clear start off the line. Boat number 1 up at the far end. Boat number 4, second row start for them, already having to tack out for clear air out to the right-hand side. So boat number 4, Circolo della Velabari, not a great start by the Italians unless they really want that right-hand side.
No, we saw him fairly early on at about 30, 40 seconds to go get bumped into that second row. And again, just seemed a bit strange that he didn't take that little tack out, come back again and double tack back into a space or force a position. They clearly obviously didn't want to get down towards the pin end because they could have borne away and looked for that. It was a little bit late on. But they seem happy with that tactic of going out towards that right. Looking at the wind stats, certainly the shortest distance and that slight port end bias again is still keeping the favoritism towards that mid left-hand side. Breeze fairly consistent across that course, maybe a smidge more on that sort of mid left-hand side again. So a bold move from Circolo della Velabari to head out towards that right on such an early occasion, but I think it all started to go wrong at 30, 40 seconds to go.
Yes, and I'm really not given much choice. But it is extremely congested at this end of the line, this end of the course. We're seeing 5 boats really close together, and boat number 6 has got to wait for 4 other boats to decide to tack onto port before boat 6, which is RR and ZV Massenroe from the Netherlands, before they can do their thing. Boat number 7 up on their hip, Société de Regatta Rochelaise, but no, they're going to duck behind all of them. So they're giving away space, knowingly doing so. They feel like they've run out of ley line, and they better get out of there to be able to give themselves half a chance of some breathing space. But so much space being given away by boat number 6, who they were nominally in the lead according to the tracking, but without any control. Now the Dutch have put themselves way back in the pack, but at least they can dictate some of their own terms. Was it a price worth paying? We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, out on the right-hand side, you can see the green trace of Circolo della Velabari, the reigning Sailing Champions League champions from last year, on starboard tack, the only boat on starboard tack at the moment. And it looks like they are going to be crossed by Pulsen from the Czech Republic. So not one of the top performers, but currently just ahead of the Italians.
Well, just to kind of reinforce, sort of using the SAP Sailing Analytics, I've just identified, looking at through that manoeuvre loss of what the Dutch team KNZ and RV Muden took on that tack. According to the data and what we saw is that, yes, it brought them back into the middle of the pack, but that lost them nearly 23 meters of distance on Bowsby from taking that tack, then having to duck those 3 other boats, because it was an aggressive duck as well. It's, I'm not sure whether I would have taken that. I would have probably sitting just up onto that port ley line a little bit further and looked for a gap and accepted you would have had to follow a transom in, but nearly 23-meter loss. That's a
3 boat lengths, isn't it?
Yeah.
3 boat lengths of a J70, the kind of boat that we're looking at. So now we're into that point of convergence. It looks like one of the boats on starboard tack is clear ahead of all the boats coming in on port tack, as long as they are on their final approach. It looks like they're a little bit below ley line, where they have to put in another tack. It looks like they're going to have to do a quick double tack at the top. So that's boat number 5. It's the boat from Czech Republic. Are they going to be able to tack round, or has boat number 3 managed? They certainly had to go round a big distance round the outside, and you can see how close things are. There's surely got to be some collisions going on at the back of the pack.
Circolo della Velabari then did exactly the same position, just low on that bit. They took the tack onto port to avoid or to try and make a gap. And they head into that gap, but by doing that, I reckon they're going to pick up a penalty. Keep an eye on the umpire. Red flag's gone up. It is pointing towards... It's got to go to the Italians, surely. That I would have thought that was a bold move by them. They took that tack onto a port. They were okay with that position, but it was when they rolled back into that starboard tack. But the flag went.
Are we seeing the yellow boat doing something with its Jenica? Is it boat number 3?
3
is going to have to
take
a turn.
KSSS.
It looks like they're waiting for the other boat to pass before they start doing a penalty turn. So it's the Royal Swedish Yacht Club. Bjorn Hansen, one of the world's best match racers, comes off worse in a close quarter situation, and it's going to put the Swedish right to the back of the pack. And meanwhile, it looks like another penalty for the dark blue boat, and that could be Regatta Club Bodensee, our overall leaders. So 2 penalties by some significant teams. This is all playing into the hands of the leaders and also Cercolo della Valabari. Let's see what Hinnock, if he can hear us out in the water, what's his impression of how things are going out there. Hi, Hinnock.
Yeah, we saw Cercolo della Valabari was really Andy. Was really upset at the jury. They were on port tack, and yes, tacked back to starboard, and both boats, the Swedish boat and Regatta Club Bodensee, didn't quite manage to fit in. And the umpires took some time but decided on both penalties. And now Cercolo della Valabari looks comfortable, maybe in first position, at least in second, and approaching the gate.
Hinnock, thank you very much for that summary. And what a dramatic mark rounding we saw just now, and how the places have changed because of that. And it's really played into the hands of the team from the Czech Republic, who are having the race of their lives at the moment, really sailing fantastically. They're in 10th overall. They actually won their previous heat as well. So these guys are really learning, and they're putting themselves in contention for one of those top 7 places. They're in 10th overall at the moment, and only 6 or 7 points off that coveted top 7 places. And in 7th place overall is KSSS, who is now in last in this race, having been one of the boats to be given the penalty. The Royal Swedish Yacht Club, helmed by the match racer Bjorn Hansen, who knows all about penalties. He knows how to dish them out, but he's not so used to being given them in a fleet race. And a really slick drop there by boat number 7. Front of picture, that's the French. They got some top 49er sailors on board. We're now on board with the race leaders from the Czech Republic, the team from Truk Pulsen, and sailing a fantastic race right now, looking very calm and in control.
Well,
yes, no. So yes, I was just drawing attention there that some of these shirts on board the boats just aren't long enough, are they, Corky?
No, there's clearly a lot to see out on the on the waters, but again, quite happily not worried about. He
was on camera, wasn't he? And he turned round for all of our benefit, which is
not worried about fashion out there at the moment. It's all about the racing, and that's exactly what these guys have. They are straight back out. Look at the lead they've got. They've got over a bit of space out again, sticking out towards that left-hand side. Looking at the breeze, it's looking again in that left-hand phase. So strange that people are still bouncing out towards that right. But again, it isn't necessarily about just going out and winning races. It's that consistency. It's about putting yourself in that second and third spot and just ticking away, not picking up that. And as we've picked up is, Bjorn Hansen sort of with those penalties at the top knows how detrimental that can be to your overall lead. But for the Truk Pulsen, they're doing a really nice job out in front. And as Andy said, just winning their last of the race as well is just really bringing them back up into contention. And this is the last race of Flight 12. So this will give us a complete overall leaderboard with all of the boats raced. So this will give a real idea and sense of overall positions before we would move into Flight 13. So by doing this will identify the points and where the opportunities are for attack.
Well, the team from the Czech Republic, they're not used to sailing the J70. We are seeing them improve, and these 2 first places, both in the last race, we're just coming up to a cross here. So just as they go to duck, boat number 4, Cercolo della Valabari, decides to go into attack. So that was a needless giveaway of space there by boat number 2. But the Italians in the green number 4 sailing a really good race, considering that they were bounced out of the start at the beginning of this race. Not a great start for the Italians, but they held their nerve, and somehow, despite Corky's prediction, they managed to avoid one of those penalties of that really congested first windward mark. And the important thing is that those port tackers, including the Italians, seem to be crossing the boats on starboard this time. On board with the Dutch, and at the top mark, it's boat number 5. And taking that boom only just going over the top of the windward mark. That was cutting it pretty fine, but the Czech Republic now with a very healthy lead, followed by the Italians, the reigning champions from the 2018 Sailing Champions League, going round in second place, just ahead of the Dutch. On board with the Dutch, going round in third place. And you can see a bit of luffing going on behind. It's getting very dramatic here again for the second time round. Is that? Yes, there's going to be a hit on the windward mark by boat number 6. They're going to have to take a turn. Now boat number 8 is completely stopped. And now who's going round? Buffalo Girls round the outside. It is boat number 3. And it's Kungliga Svenska Segelsällskapet. Have they got a chance to move up from last place into third place? This is a great comeback by Bjorn Hansen as boat number 6 is forced to go into a spin. I think they were third in this. Oh no, yeah, I think they were third in that before they hit the mark. So that's an absolute disaster for the Dutch. Such a turnaround. So the Dutch go from third to last, and the Swedish go from pretty much last into third place. fourth place, I think it is. So huge place changes, and we're seeing this pattern quite often at that windward mark, Corky. The first couple get round cleanly, and then it all turns to custard after that.
Well, it's exactly that. It's just these turning marks that there's the speed differences. We're noting, of course, there's half a knot boat speed in between the boats, how you're sailing the boat, but not enough to really significantly change places. The one place that's always going to happen is at turning marks, whether that be at the gate, but at the moment it's all been fairly controlled with the 2 gate marks. We are seeing that defined split between the boats, but at the windward mark, when they all congest, it's a really sort of just kind of thrown everything in. It's a big gamble for some of these boats, and I appreciate sort of you've got to try and commit in, and you've got to be bold with your manoeuvre, but again, a lot of them misjudging that starboard lay line, sitting a little bit low, trying to shoot that mark. Then the breeze, they're slowing down and getting caught up on that mark. But, for the guys out in front, once you get round and a bit clearer again, then they're golden, really. Exactly what these guys have done here.
These guys being Truck Poulsen from the Czech Republic, and looking extremely comfortable and making their race win in the previous race that these guys did look less and less like a fluke and more like a growing trend. So this is a team that seems to be getting to grips with the J70 very quickly. Radek Smetana, Jan Skoda, Thomas Marek and Michaela Mertlova sitting on the bow, just about to cross the line, and I bet we're going to see some smiles from this team. And yeah, high fives. Well deserved. Cecolo della Valabari last off the start line. Can they hold on to second across the finish line? It looks like they're going to bring it back. And the Italians crossing the line, followed by boat number 2, which is the Dutch from Sweden. So really good, solid race by the Italians, looking so chilled. Simone Ferraresi. Then we got a big fight for 4th place. At the moment, it looks like it's KSSS from Sweden, Bjorn Hansen, salvaging a good result for 4th place across the line. But who is going to take 5th place? So close between 7 and 8. The photo finish between boat 7 and boat 8, and there's not much to choose between the final 2, but it's the dark blue boat that will get across the line just ahead of purple Massenreur, who took that penalty at the final windward mark. So the Dutch relegated to the back of the fleet. So we're going to see if we can get an interview with Simone Ferraresi or one of the guys off Cecolo della Valabari, bearing in mind that in that race they were up against the series leaders. Now the series leaders who have had such a consistent performance, they got a 5th in their first race back on Thursday. All their other scores have been up in the top 3, other than a 4th place earlier today. But that race, they got a 7th place. Now let's see if we can have a word with Simone Ferraresi in a moment. And we can see Hinnock just coming into screen. And that's Simone reaching out to pull the 2 boats together. And on board are getting the yellow jerseys of the Saro Boat Club from Sweden. But yes, while we're waiting to speak to Simone Ferraresi, he won't know, and he probably won't be too bothered at this stage, Corky, but they have actually moved up into 1st place overall after getting that 2nd place in that race, because Bodensee have now dropped from 1st to 3rd after getting a 7th place.
Yeah, as I say, always nice confidence booster and a nice place to be. You know, to go into, if you can win the qualifier, then of course setting yourself up really nicely. They are, again, the overall leaders from last year as well, and so looking forward to carrying on that progression.
Okay, well, let's see what Simone Ferraresi has to say for himself after such a poor start. Simone, I was disappointed with your start in that race.
Yeah, we were also a bit. We thought the last call was that at the end maybe we liked it a little bit to be clean and more on the right, but we got too close on leeward on the other boats. But we got a good channel of wind, and Valerio, Leo and Corrado made a really good job to bring me back on the race, and then we managed also to give luckily a bit of penalties to our to the other boats, and we kept clean, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah, well, getting around that windward mark was extremely busy, and we couldn't tell where the penalties were going to go. And I saw that you hoisted your Jenica straight away, but was there any part of you that wondered if you might get the penalty?
I think no, because we were on starboard, a bit lower on the line, and we saw the chance to block Björn coming from the left, and we managed to give him a penalty. And then I think the Swiss were on leeward of us and maybe broke the rule 17 or touched the mark, I don't know. But all of a sudden we got clean, a good speed, and we kept the race well. And yeah, the second was really good, I think, for this race.
Simone, you're a top match racer, so is Bjorn Hansen. So for a moment there, did it feel like you were in a match race with the Swedish?
Yeah, well, you know, I think me and Bjorn, we always have fun when we are close, and this time maybe we had, but I know Bjorn, and I hope he's not going to come back with a revenge.
Well, Bjorn Hansen, he's always smiling. I'm sure he'll forgive you if he feels that you were too tough on him. The other thing was, were you aware of the other boats in the race and who they were? And I think particularly of Regatta Club Bodensee, who have been leading this series. You were the 2nd place boat, and you were up against the overall leader in the series, but they didn't have a good race. They were 7th. So that changes the leaderboard in your favor now.
Yes, they were the boat close to us. The other boat had got a penalty, and yeah, they lost a little bit the control of the race there. I think they were just behind us, and yeah, we were aware that Bjorn and the Swiss were in the same race, and but we wanted just to be clean, and we are confident about our speed, and being out of troubles is still our goal. So then, of course, in the top mark. You cannot do anything when all the boats are coming together. You have to practice to do a bit of match racing. This time was good. Hope the next is going to be the same.
Simone, we saw a great lesson in how to extract yourself from a bad start and still get a great finish across the finish line. And that now puts you in the lead overall. So congratulations and keep up the good work.
Yeah, it's still long, so there is a lot of races, and we just try to be focused on our good points and avoid troubles. So thanks to my team that is doing a really good job at the moment and helping me being in the races.
Thanks, Simone, and enjoy the pasta on board the good ship Matilda.
Thank you, Andy.
So that's Simone Ferrarese now. Well, let's look at it for ourselves, in fact. Let's take a look at the leaderboard and see how things have panned out after what was a really crucial race. Because Regatta Club Bodensee, they were the leaders going into that race. They got a 7th place. That relegates the Swiss now down to 3rd overall on 31 points. And moving ahead of them, well, we saw them win their race just now. That was Verein Seglerhaus and Wannsee, and they are seemingly getting better and better, are the Germans. And then Cecolo della Valabari, we just spoke to Simone Ferrarese. A very poor start in that race, but a great recovery. A bit of match racing applied at the windward mark on the Swiss and the Swedish, and they moved up into 2nd place in that race. And that now puts them in the lead overall. So the reigning champions from 2018 now leading Qualifier 2 at the Qualifier in Porto Cervo. So fantastic sailing by them. Let's look at who's on the cusp of getting through. So Yacht Club Breitenburen, they got the OCS earlier today, but they followed up with the first. That leaves them just inside the top 7 with 45 points. And then just on the outside of the top 7 are the Estonians, just 2 points off qualifying. Eastie Match Race Elite, we haven't seen much of them so far today. And then RR and ZV Massenrohr last in their race just now, which drops them out of the qualification zone, so they need to come back strong. We see that they've managed to win races earlier in the series. And then Truck Pulsen from Czech Republic, they just won that race just now. They won the race before that, and their scores are definitely on the up. And they've got 3 more races, 3 more flights of racing to do over today and tomorrow. Will it be enough for the Czech Republic to continue to learn the ropes on the J70 and maybe do sufficient learning to be able to get into the top 7 by the end of tomorrow's racing tomorrow afternoon? So that's the standings at the top of the board. Overall, we've got 16 nations and 24 teams racing here, Corky.
Well, interesting with us, just pick up on Truck Pools, and they will be in this first race. Race 37 of Flight 13. They'll be in this first race that we'll get to see. You can see one other J17. No, they haven't lost their crew. That's a spare boat anchored out there, ready to rotate round if there was any damage to those boats. But Truck Pools, and as I say, 2 race wins in the last 2 flights. Question will be, this first race, if they can go out, can they continue and claim another first? And that's certainly going to help them move up that leaderboard.
Well, surely the confidence will be running high after winning their 2 previous races, but it's so difficult to be consistent in this kind of racing. We see how marginal those windward mark roundings are. You can be hero or zero in the blink of an eye, and I was surprised to hear how confident Ferrarese felt about their windward mark rounding, but he clearly did feel that he had the control going around that windward mark and was able to exert penalties on some of the other boats around him.
Yeah, I think from our situation, we were sat there trying to look at at least 6 or 7 boats all at the same time, when if you're tucked in, you're in your boat, you're locked in, and you're looking at the boats nearest to you. And so I think that from the penalty, it was completely fair from where he felt. From where we were trying to look from every single perspective of, is that boat, when actually he was bang on the money with that. And again, penalties handed out, and that's racing. You're going to put yourself in those positions, you're going to constantly push, but you need to know exactly what the rules are going to do and how to use them in your favour.
The yellow jerseys of Saro Boat Club, it doesn't mean that they're in the lead, it just means that they like wearing yellow. And one of the sailors just putting his cap on there. He's actually an ex-America's Cup sailor. Speaking to him yesterday, Christian During, and very experienced sailor who took a few years out while he had family and life got in the way, but at the age of 61, he's in great shape, as you can see, as he just walks forwards, and still absolutely loving his sailing. Well, we're waiting for the next race to get underway. Let's find out a little bit more about these sailing analytics, the SAP sailing analytics that help us do our job and help you at home also understand who's winning and why.
Hello from the World Championships in Aarhus. I'm Axel Uhl, I'm with SAP, and my role here is to take care of the tracking. Back in 2011 we wanted to show just a single leaderboard for just a single race, and we thought we would have one user and one screen and we would track one race or maybe two in a little regatta. Since then we've been tracking a little more than 11,000 races, and we never thought that that would happen. We equip a lot of things around the race course with sensors. One thing is that we put a sensor on each mark and we put sensors on each boat. It's a couple of people that you need to operate something at that scale. It starts with just making sure that the infrastructure is working all right. So here we sometimes have around 20 servers up and running all the time to make sure that we really scale to the amount needed. Sometimes trackers fail. We want to inform our partners to, for example, replace a tracker. Somebody drops a wind sensor into the water, the whole wind field information would get distorted by that. When something breaks, or if we're not available, or if we're not at an event, commentators tell us, what are we going to talk about? And then we say, like, look, this is the difference that we made. After all these years, people have become so accustomed to having that service available. So commentary is one of the key elements. You couldn't really comment on a sailboat race if you weren't able to use that technology.
Well, thanks to Axel Uhl and the team at SAP who give us all that amazing data. Corky, you were out at the Fin Europeans in Athens last week, and you know how important data and tracking is, because you were actually tracking remotely from the UK, even though the event was in Athens. So it's amazing what modern technology can do, isn't it?
Oh, it does. It opens up exactly what's going on with the racing. And for us here, we've got this race underway, race 1 in flight 13. But again, for the picture here, for the viewers, you're just looking at a single picture. You're trying to identify those boats on there. But from the tracker, you're suddenly able to dive down, look at the angles, the speeds, who those people are, and where those boats are coming from. And so boat number 8 is the Estonian boat closest to picture. They look like they've got a little bit of a gap away. And again, you can see boat 1, 5 and 6 all starting to close together, squeeze together. And they're going to start to try and go into this high mode. So for this, now you suddenly look from this shot, they've got a bit of breathing space. Is it enough to be able to put attack in when that shift comes? Wait and see. But again, with all the tracking information, we've got the wind stats. We've got what the wind does. We also have what figures out which way up this race course, looking at the wind data and where it go. And certainly there's a nice shift coming in, which, perfect time. These guys obviously heard what I had said and tacked out. But again, they're just trying to clear their air. You can see how tightly packed it is. And also, just looking at the boats now, there's actually quite a bit of seaway sort of moving around. Bit more movement across this water as this breeze has come up. These boats just pitching through that waves, and that's what's given us the speed differences as well.
It looks like the Estonians in front of the picture there are struggling to hold the same line as the other boats, and they might, they're going through a little bit of chop there. They're falling off compared with some of the other boats around them, so they're not in a position to be able to tack and cross. They're going to tack knowing that they're going to have to go behind these other boats. But the other boats are peeling away, and suddenly the Estonians have clear air, so that's a bonus that they probably weren't expecting. And the way that all the boats have suddenly tacked suggests they feel they're already up on the port hand ley line. Now, the boat that was bounced out first out to the right-hand side is one of the Polish boats, Pogon Szczecin, and I wonder if that's going to play into their hands a bit more. At least they've got a bit of runway to play with, whereas there are 5 boats stacked hard up on the port hand ley line, and I think it's going to be another congested windward mark.
But again, sort of interesting looking at them, the poles are down by about 5 degrees compared with these boats sat up on the left-hand side. The Polish are on a bearing of about 141, and again, sort of about 135 squeezing up on this side. So at least 5-6 degrees difference sort of from that right side of the track to the left. And again, on one design boats, 5 degrees is a huge amount. Anything above that, then, you know, we always had a bit of a rule if it was a couple of degrees, depending on whether it was a tactical situation of taking that tack or not. But if you're looking at anything from 5 degrees, you've got to be looking at taking that, certainly on these short courses.
Yeah, and that is absolutely borne out by that tracker view that we had just then. The Polish really not doing very well on the right-hand side, just not getting the best of the breeze. It looks a bit softer out that side. The Swedish also up on that side of the course. But here are the port tackers, and there's going to be a real battle here. I think I'd probably want to be boat number 2, the red boat on the left of picture. And we're there with the one of the Swedish boats, Saro Boat Club, with boat number 7 just over their shoulder, and it's going to be tense moments as they approach the windward mark. I think we're going to see another congested one. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more penalties handed out at the top of the course.
See on board, they're glancing down under the boom, and that's because Svenska Segelskapel there, the boat number 3, coming in, causing the issues of being on starboard now. Our boat's going to try and peel in front of them. Are they going to take their manoeuvre with boat 7 being bounced around? There's no way these boats are all getting around here cleanly.
Will boat number 1, as it goes round in the lead, actually get away with that, or will they cop a penalty? Because there was all kinds of having to keep clear. I wouldn't want to be a jury member. I think I'd have to give everyone a penalty right now.
Probably be the safest bet, wouldn't it? But again, just picking up on the Estonians there in the light blue. That's Match Race Lead. They were the ones that had to squeezed up in that middle, and I mean put the anchors out and just stopped and caused everybody that trying to work that space round. At some point, there's a red flag. Where is it being aimed? Is it towards the Estonian boat?
It's the leaders. It's the leaders, isn't it? Boat number 1, all kinds of trouble because they're trying to take their penalty whilst they've still got the Jenica up. And they had a lovely little lead going around the windward mark, and they panicked as they went into their penalty turn, and they've all made it a lot harder than it needed to be. So absolute shocker on board boat number 1.
Come on, from your honest opinion, do you ever take a penalty turn with your spinnaker still up?
It wouldn't be my choice to do so, and I don't know why you feel the need to do that. I mean, you just give yourself a little bit more time to get the Jenica down, and I think maybe that's a lack of practice. It's a lack of talking through your systems and your routines. Should you get the penalty?
But surely just to you leave the sheet in fairly tight, you leave the bowsprit out, and you literally just bang off the halyard and let 90% of it drop down into the hatch. Surely that's got to be the quickest route out.
You would think so. But I mean, what a giveaway by Orlansa Segelsalskap, the Finnish team, giving away first place, dropping back to 7th. They probably didn't deserve to be in first place in the first place, if you know what I mean.
But also behind them, you can see is the grey boat is Naval de Kashkai. Again, Vasco Serpa spinning as well, picking up on his track. Again, a penalty handed out for him, and it was the boat even further back. And so now we can see nearly a distance from that front boat to him is over 150 metre gap, which, again, the punches keep coming.
They do. Now the pinky purple boat closest to us, boat number 5, Truk Pulsen, the Czech Republic team that have been winning their previous 2 races. They didn't start so well. We're on board with them right now. Bit of pumping from the helmsman just to get a little bit of more power and a bit of surf off the small waves there. Working the boat really hard and in a good position again. They're not showing as being up in the lead, but as we were looking at a really busy leeward gate here now, and the Swedes already getting their Jenica down, ready to round. Are they going to be able to round clean ahead of the Polish boat? Looks like they managed to. So Swedes going round left and right. Sweden leads to the left, Sweden leads to the right. And then following round, Czech Republic just following KSS round on the near mark. On board with the Czech Republic, lying in second place going out to the left-hand side. Probably third in this race right now. Saro Boat Club with the yellow jerseys going out to the far right-hand side.
And just picking up on that shot there from the drone, you can see boat number 6 squeezing round. That is the Polish Pogon Sajensen. just taking that hitch up. And it's amazing, sort of, we talk about, great, you've gone round, you've led round that mark, but positioning out of a gate mark is just fundamental, isn't it? Certainly, you know, if you're able just to do that tight, do that golden one where I've, remember Jim Saltonstall and all the coaches I've had banging away on my ear is sort of stay out wide and come in tight around that mark. Well, that's exactly it. It's sort of coming out with your positions, if not more important than where you are actually in lined up, and being able to take that tack back out. And so really interesting to see. It was the Estonians, the match race elite, get pushed, and they're sailing that lighter line. So they're the light blue boat, now just in shot, boat number 8 to the right of image. They took that shot, and these are the boats around them were the ones that just came out, even though they were behind them on the gate mark, a better position. And so positioning was key around that gate mark.
And now we get to see whose positioning is best on the racecourse. Will it be Sweden on the right or Sweden on the left who come in leading? That's the yellow jerseys of Surrey Boat Club on the right-hand side of the racecourse. How are they going to fare? We're on board with them right now.
The wind flicking right now a little bit, so they're in a right-hand phase, slightly higher angle, but it's got pretty much the two Swedish boats head-on collision at the moment, but obviously right of way with these guys here. They're both approaching, coming back towards the mid part of the course, so don't worry, that's not on the boat. Here's the shot of the two Swedish boats as they approach each other. The lead line pretty much staying fairly neutral between them both.
So critical point in the race for the two Swedish crews. Bjorn Hansen, the match racer, coming in from the left-hand side. He's been leading this race up until this point. But in the parlance of match racing, will Zarro Boat Club have a piece of him? So now it's tense moments on board boat number 3. Are they doing enough? Bjorn Hansen doesn't think so. They're going to have to tack. And we're into a classic match racing bounce-off there between the top two Swedish teams. But meanwhile, Truck Pools are not involved in that match race, also perhaps able to start taking on the Swedes, but no, softening up a bit. So at the moment, the race for the lead still between the top two Swedes. But Bjorn Hansen knows that he's in the disadvantaged position. He's closest to our screen, but on the far side is Zarro Boat Club, who will be on to starboard tack earliest. And this surely is their final tack of the race if they've judged it correctly. But will Bjorn Hansen be able to get across? No, he's gone for his tack quite early. And now will Bjorn Hansen control as they go around the windward mark? It looks like Bjorn Hansen can hold his position. So KSSS hold on to the lead, and it's the Swedes from Surrey Boat Club round in second, and it's the Czech Republic, Truck Poulsen, just managed to shoot the mark, get round in third place. And the boats trucking in behind them are Estonia, followed by boat number 4, which is the other Polish team, Pogon Szczecin. And a line of boats going around the mark much more cleanly than we saw in the previous race. Olandska Segod Salskapet from Finland going around in 6th place. They were leading this race until they took that disastrous penalty. So will the second Swedish boat be able to attack the lead of the leading Swedish boat, KSSS, skippered by Bjorn Hansen, the seasoned match racer? I wouldn't want to have to take on Bjorn Hansen in a boat-for-boat match race. He knows everything there is to know about these racing rules.
Well, it's interesting if you're a supporting boat of JK Aurora. They were making their way upwind and looked like they were involved in a penalty. They look like they've taken one penalty and then gone into a second penalty. So whether they completed it properly and because of that have peeled out. So this is the fleet as you see it. They clearly were right behind the fleet, and whether what those penalties were about. But I've picked up they've potentially done 2, possibly 3 on that last upwind leg, and because of that have looked like they've just headed straight down towards the finish and accepted that it could be a retirement, whether there is potentially a breakage on that or whether they've just had enough. Who knows? But certainly picking up that amount of penalties on that upwind leg, trying to just identify what they were, and if there has, I think there was a port and starboard with a Landska Segelskapel. They looked like they potentially didn't cross cleanly there, but it certainly looked like they've picked up a good few penalties.
Jibing with Zaro Boat Club. KSSS had jibed away already, so now we're on a port starboard collision course between the two Swedish boats. Who's got the better of the breeze? KSSS were the leaders, and now they're on starboard jibe. Have they done enough to be able to get across Zaro Boat Club? It looks like Zaro Boat Club are going to, actually push the boat up behind the Swedes, so they've given away distance there. So I would say that makes KSSS safer for the win. But meanwhile, Czech Republic in the pink, also on the attack in the Czech Republic, winners of the previous two races that they've done, with a chance maybe of being able to get back into second place. But I think KSSS at the moment in a good defensive position to be able to win the race. But the closer race, I think, is going to be between second and third. KSSS, the yellow boat, just about to cross for the win. And then it's going to be a photo finish for second and third between the other Swedish boat and the Czech Republic. It looks like the tracker has given the second place to Zaro Boat Club and Czech Republic, Trukpilsen for third. And then fourth across the line is the light blue boat of the Estonians, followed on another photo finish by the green boat and the dark blue boat, the green boat being the Polish, and the dark blue boat being Cascais from Portugal. And then we've got Orlando Segelskapet somewhere in there, and also JK Aurora bringing up the rear. But anyway, a KSSS, Bjorn Hansen and his crew managing to come out on top of a very, very close Swedish match race in that competition. And I think it was a second place for these guys on board Zaro Boat Club. So still a very respectable score for them. Zaro Boat Club with Tobias Bergqvist, Christian Düring, Bjorn Palmqvist and Lisa Riedbacken. That's Lisa Riedbacken right there, about to step off the boat. And there'll be a switchover of teams. Hard to tell with this crew. They've not exactly got their team colours together, so we'll see who's on board this boat in a moment when they break out their ID flag. Oh, it looks like the Brits. Looks like it's Wessex Exiles. Well, they can barely scrape enough money together for a pizza, so it's not surprising that they haven't managed to get the team gear together. The Wessex Exiles fighting for one of these top 7 places. It's the top 7 that will qualify from Porto Cervo, the second of these 3 qualifiers this season that go through to the Sailing Champions League final in St. Moritz at the end of August. The Union Jack finally flying on the back of this boat. And we're looking to get an interview with someone from the winning boats, KSSS. We'll switch over to Bjorn Hansen now. So Bjorn, if you can hear me, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. It was a tight race for sure. We were extremely tight at the top mark. We were fortunately on starboard tack coming in, and 3 boats were trying to squeeze between us and the marks, and I don't know, at least 1 boat got a penalty, so that gave us a little bit room to breathe, but still very tight all the way around the course.
Yes, and it was a Swedish 1-2 for very much of that race, and when the other Swedish team broke out to the right-hand side of the course, how concerned were you that you'd given up control on the next port starboard crossing?
Well, not too much actually, because we thought that the left-hand side was better breeze-wise. We would have liked to round the other gate mark down here and go for attack, but they were inside us, so we changed our mind and went to the left-hand mark instead. But then coming up, it was decided that we should go before the ley line, before the port ley line. So if they could reach us, we had time to tack outside the zone. But they also came out short of their starboard ley line, and they just managed to take us on a starboard port situation. So we came pretty close to the zone in the end from port, but they overstood the mark a little bit, so we managed to squeeze inside and round ahead of them. But you know, down the last run it was 5 or 6 boats just on our hip, so we decided to jibe in early and later have the starboard advantage when we came back close to the finish line.
Bjorn, even though you're in a fleet race, how much does your match racing experience help you in these close quarters situations?
I think it helps me quite a lot, but I need to learn to have more margin than I have, because you know, in a match race we have one umpire boat and just two boats racing, so they can be much closer to the situation than they can be here. So it's quite hard for the umpires to see the situations really. So that means that you can't rely on getting the correct calls all the time because they are often not in the correct position.
Yeah, there's many different places that the umpires need to be looking all at once, and those windward marks, it seems like you need one umpire for every boat on the race course. But if you didn't have those umpires, it would be chaos, wouldn't it? It would be like anarchy out there.
Yeah. This would not be possible without the umpires, for sure. I mean, we would be sitting in the protest hearing room all night otherwise. So, I mean, the sailors just have to accept that sometimes umpires make a mistake, but on the other hand, the sailors do 3 times as many mistakes as the umpires. So I mean, they are still the best guys on the race course out here.
Bjorn, it seems like your crew wants to get back to the Matilda and fill themselves up with pasta, but we're enjoying talking to you, so I think they can wait a little bit longer. But I'm just a bit concerned about your sun factor.
Definitely.
What strength of sun factor sun cream are you using?
You are? The same as this microphone.
I can't tell. Yeah, I can't tell the difference. I think that microphone was made from your skin.
I'm probably only pumped up after that race, so that's why I'm red. So I don't see a problem with the sun, though.
Well,
no, but I just want to add that the crew did a fantastic job in this last race. They really managed to keep us in front. I mean, it was like 7 hungry wolves chasing us around the race course, so they deserve their time in fame as well. So big thanks to and congratulations to my crew.
Okay, well that's very good of you to say so, Bjorn, and you better get your crew back to their bowl of pasta, and you, for yourself, just please put some more sun cream on before the next race.
Okay, I promise. That's tomorrow, and it's raining tomorrow.
Thanks, Bjorn. Great to talk to you, and congratulations on your race win.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So Bjorn Hansen, very pleased with his crew, even though his crew didn't show the same patience or respect for him. But no, clearly there's good team spirit amongst that team, and good sailing by the Swedes all round, taking the top 2 places in that race.
Well, again, you just have to look at some of the caliber of the sailors that are dotted in and around this fleet. With, you know, a lot of people just think this fleet is based with a lot of people from the home clubs coming up, sort of students, all sorts of bits. But actually, you know, there's of course the full depth within all of the clubs from where people have grown up and come back, and to have these names in the actual Sailing Champions League really brings a precedence to what level of sailing is going on the water. It isn't just like a university student racing sort of body. It's these are world-class, renowned sailors, and of course some of the sailors out there are enjoying having the battles against these giants of the sport. So I think it's a pretty amazing bit, and it creates, in a way, the most neutral playing field for them.
Yeah, I think so, and it's very brave of top sailors to put themselves in such an even fight like this. It really leaves their reputations very exposed if they don't come out of these competitions well. But anyway, Bjorn Hansen, one of the best match racers in the world, certainly showed a clean pair of heels to the fleet in the race that we've just seen. And in fact, that was their last race of the afternoon. So it may not just be pasta in on board the good ship Matilda. Maybe the Swedes will be able to go back to Yacht Club Costa Smeralda for some well-earned pasta there. So the winners of the various leagues around the Baltic countries that take part in the national sailing leagues, they also earn the right to take part in the Nord Stream race, which is an intriguing 1,000-mile race through the Baltic Sea.
It was a big adventure.
It was a fantastic experience for me.
Once in a lifetime opportunity again.
So the Nord Stream race, I've followed that race through the Baltic for the last 2 summers. And so you take the best sailors from their countries out of these J70s and you put them on board multi-million-dollar Club Swan 50s and push them out onto the big wide ocean, or anyway, the Baltic Sea, and send them racing from Kiel to Copenhagen to Stockholm to Helsinki and the finish in St. Petersburg. So imagine getting really good at J70 racing and then suddenly you get the keys to a 50-foot race yacht, and you can sail that 1,000 miles through the Baltic Sea. And where might that lead? It could lead to competing in the next Volvo Ocean Race, or the Ocean Race as they call it now. Who knows where these opportunities can lead? And sometimes you've got to join the dots in your racing career. These guys on board Wessex Exiles, the British, will be thinking in those terms. If we do well here, what opportunities, what doors will open for us somewhere else in the sailing world?
And that's it. The sports really kind of just opened a huge number of doors. Before, there was a very clear path. You go down the Olympic route, and then once you've been successful, you then lead on to the Cup and Volvo Ocean Racing and so on. When now, with the keel boat scenes, many of them having keel boat squads, it's an amazing to see what's actually available to the sailors out here. But this is Flight 13. This is going to be race 38.
The next race is presented by One Ocean Foundation.
1 minute to the start. Flag just comes down on the committee boat, and the weather is still holding good for the final couple of races that we'll be reporting on this afternoon.
Well, a change on this is we have got the breeze just slightly moving around towards that right-hand side. Due to that, a bit of a starboard end bias this time. So are we going to see a bit more of a bunch towards that side? Our boat's going to protect that. There we go. All the boats are sitting up towards the committee boat end. So a bit more of a gap of a runway towards that pin end, but still with a little bit of time, 20 seconds, they can still eat up a bit more of that space towards the pin end, but you don't want to be just giving that distance away for no reason.
We've got some top teams competing in this one. Some of the ones to watch out for are SRR. We were just on board with them. We've got Wassersegelvereinigung from Germany. They're in second overall, just crossed the line now.
An individual recall flag's gone up. Saw it at the front on the committee boat, so whether it is on those lead
Oh,
boats.
it is. It's boat number 2 that's going back round again. That's Wessex Exiles, the young Brits, and we're on board with them now. So bit of a misjudgment there by the young British crew, and that's going to be hard for them to come back from there.
Yeah, that's, see, straight away now onto the back foot, and with a race course that, with that breeze moving slightly towards that right-hand side, they're going to have a lot of boats starting to tack out. So you've got 3 boats already slap bang on top of them, going to be shoveling that disturbed air off the back of those sails. And so that's going to be a really horrible place to chew your way through again.
Yeah, it's a long way back for the Brits if they're going to get out of last place. On this side of the course, we got boat 6 against boat 7. But we got quite a split. But boat 6 is Kreuzlingen from Switzerland. They are 4th overall in the competition at the moment. And then Monze is boat number 7. That's the boat that they will be watching most closely at the moment. They're in 14th at the moment. So Kreuzlingen, definitely the higher form boat between these two. But at the moment, as I say that, boat number 7's tacked now. Boat number 6, Kreuzlingen, skippered by, I think it's Tom Rug. I'll check that. It is Tom Rug, ex-49er sailor. I used to race the 49er against him back in the day. Wearing the yellow and the black there. And big hiking going on by the guys at the front, really committing to putting every bit of body weight and extra righting moment into the sailing that they can. So Kreuzlingen out on what has tended to be the favoured left-hand side. Bjorn Hansen in the interview just now said that he always felt comfortable being the boat out on the left because he thinks that's where the best breeze is. And that's always how it looks from our drone shot. But I'm aware of the fact that that's always the side of the race course we're looking at. So that can be a little bit deceptive.
Yeah, I'd say sort of a bit more of a neutral start line, maybe even a small advantage to that committee boat. But again, breeze is fairly steady across the course. A little bit more of this left phase kicking back in again. And so that's enabling sort of these boats to creep in from that left-hand side. But we are still definitely mid-left is where you kind of be wanting to protect. I think you're fairly solid in there. All it is about defining and making a clear decision on where that gap is coming in at that windward mark. Not being too bold and going, well, I get there's half a boat length, I'm going to tack in there. You know, being basically bold with it. Going into, as we talked about, that catamaran sort of approach. I'm going to just carry on straight across, tack 1 boat length above the ley line. So it enables any boats coming in on starboard to dip on the inside, and you're less likely then to pick up that penalty. But when you try and fit 3 or 4 of these boats all round in the same space, we've seen time and time again, it doesn't happen.
Now we're getting to the crunch point. Let's hope it's not literally the crunch point, but the ports and starboards are beginning to converge on each other, and now it's squeaky bottom time for boat number 6 and boat number 7. Have they done enough on port tack to be able to get across the starboard tackers? At the moment, it looks like they might well do that. So the power of the left looks to be playing in the favour of the Swiss and the Austrians, who might just get across. Austria might be in a bit of trouble, boat number 7, but boat number 6 certainly looking good. So Kreuzlingen in the lead, and it looks like boat number 7, Monze, also do just enough to tack in front of Wassersegelvereinigung. So that's the cleanest windward mark rounding we've seen in a while, I think. No incidents so far. So Switzerland, Austria, Finland, round in the top 3.
About to say, that all looked fairly standard mark rounding then. That everyone's behaved themselves on that one. So, but around they go. But you can see how tightly packed it is. And again, your position out of this mark is vital. Do you sit on that slightly lower line? Are you able to get that jibe in early? Are you looking to have that position? We can see right out towards the right-hand side. There is, I say, sort of we're picking up on the yacht club. Modensee has gone very high on that right-hand side. The kite doesn't look like it's in the greatest of shapes there, and crew members being stood up. So it's...
And just going around the mark, Wessex Exile Sailing Club in 8th place. And not showing much sign of being able to catch the rest of the fleet. That's how far back they are. And not managed to make any inroads on the rest of the fleet. So I think Wessex Exiles very much relegated to the back for the duration of this race.
So here, this was, as we were just picking up, is Yacht Club Modensee. And supposedly they are OCS. This is why. So Spinnaker's come down. There's Jib rolled up. So not only we saw the British go back at that start, they might have still been over and cleared their names and have come back into that race, or they might have done that prematurely, and it was actually the Austrian Union Yacht Club Modensee that have just been notified at that top mark, which is now, you look on the left of the tracker, peeling off. So we are down to a 7-boat race.
Well, there's a small consolation for Wessex Exiles bringing up the rear, and maybe they didn't need to go back, or maybe there were 2 boats that were over. Certainly the Brits look pretty poked out on the line as well. But that will be really disappointing for Monze. Their chances of being able to get into the top 7 will really slip away with that OCS that they've just suffered just now. So that's going to drop them further down the rankings. Just about to go around in the lead is Kreuzlingen, Tom Ruger and the Swiss. A little bit late getting the Janica away, but not too bad. They're not under too much pressure right now. That's about as good a lead as we ever see in these short races. Now it's a lot harder fought going round for the next few. And coming round close to us is the dark blue boat, boat number 1. It's RR and ZV Massenruhr from the Netherlands, so a good rounding for them. And one surprise for me is that the leading Swiss have decided to go right, having done so well from being on the left-hand side up. So I wonder what Tom Ruge and his team have seen out on the right-hand side, which has tended to be the less popular place to go.
Yeah, I think potentially it's sort of the way they've come downwind. You're so tightly packed with where boats were, trying to get round that mark and where that jibing angle came in. It's one less jibe. They didn't have to go for another manoeuvre or a jibe drop on that gate mark. So you accept that you might be forced out a little bit towards the right. But we're not talking big race courses here in the sense that if you're normally forced out and you commit yourself to one side, you're pretty stuck there. Here they could take that tack back, come back towards that right. But with the bream space at the moment, there's a nice left shift, so it's favoured on that port hand tack. So the boats that, even though they're going out towards the right, the boat that are actually on that port hand tack are on the lifting tack. So we see there on that drone shot, the 3 in the back of picture are on the lifting tack. So the bulk of the fleet all on actually a knocking tack here. So the gain is towards that right. But of course, if that breeze doesn't shift back and hold, the advantage spins back towards the boats on this left side.
Well, Corky, that certainly seems to bear out what you were just saying. It looks like the right is looking a lot better than it has tended to do. And RR and ZV on the far left rounded in probably 3rd place. It still has them ranked as 3rd place, but it looks like maybe they've actually given away quite a lot of distance. The other factor being that the left-hand rounding at the bottom, the gate mark on the left, was also further to sail. So there were, it seems, many good reasons for the Swiss to break the usual mould of the leader going to the left. The Swiss have gone to the right and they've further extended their lead, and they look extremely comfortable on the boats on their left. So this is going to be a relatively straightforward win, I think, for Kreuzlingen and Tom Ruge's crew.
Yeah, and they're pretty comfortable up in front, and again, without any silly boat handling errors, this should just be an easy run to the finish line. They've got lots of breathing space. And again, without the pressures around them, hopefully you shouldn't see any silly mistakes going in.
Yeah, so as things stand, a race win here certainly be a lot better than their 6th place in their previous heat, and it would put them up into the top 4. So good score for them so far. Whereas Wannsee, they are in 6th in this. They were formerly they were vying for the lead. They're still doing very well. They're in 3rd overall where they stand at the moment, but 6th not particularly great for them. I mean, while Monze, who were doing well earlier in this race, they've been pulled out because they were over the line at the start, and Wessex Exiles playing catch up after going back. But a very straightforward hoist here for Tom Rugg and his crew, under no pressure at the moment from anybody on the final run to the finish. And just behind them you can see SRR, amongst them some really top 49er sailors on the French team. SRR just about to go round in second place. And behind them, the Dutch, who went out to the left-hand side, RR and ZV, Mas and Roar in boat number 1, going for a very deep bear away and then a set, trying to get the inside line on the French, seeing if they can attack for second place. Next boat round, boat number 8 is Yacht Club Breitenbrunn.
The thing that surprises me here is that with such a strong dominance towards that right-hand side, why the jibe didn't come in early and get away from these boats and already position yourself there, because you can see the lower angle now being soaked by these boats. We can see the French boat taking that jibe early and actually goose-winging that sort of kite over to try and gain some depth and close the distance and force a bit of a mistake from the Swiss. There's a big gap between them still, so it's going to need some difference. But I would have been bit more protective over that sort of side, or maybe just going for that jibe slightly earlier, just to again just bank that position. Again, always just banking what you gain, making those gains without feeling the pressure. Loads of space, but again, it'll be an interesting one to see how the French have done. They've now come out of that position, but they've held a really nice low line and now sit on the inside of that little pack just behind the leaderboard.
We haven't seen much of that goose swinging, but that looked like it worked really well for the French there. So they basically held their Jenica on starboard jibe, but they threw the boom across. So they had the mainsail on port jibe, and they had the Jenica on starboard jibe, and that allowed them to gain some depth on the Dutch boat attacking them.
And again, it's that classic sort of match racing sort of manoeuvre, isn't it? It's all about positioning, trying to position yourself to think, right, in the next 2-3 positions here, I need to be jibing. I want to be coming into this finish line on starboard. I want to be the one nearest the mark to give me the room at the mark. And again, that's exactly the position they're in now. So they've got a boat just to windward of them that they've got to hold on. And
we're, I think, looking at, that is the leaders. So that is Tom Rugg and Segler Vereinigung Kreuzlingen with a really, really comfortable lead here, about to cross the finish line in, I would say, this would be the most dominant victory that we've seen all day today. It's been much harder fought, but this has been a really easy race for the Swiss. And it all comes back to a good start off the pin end of the line, being able to tack fairly early, a good race win, very solid, well-deserved high fives for the Swiss team representing Kreuzlingen. That's Tom Rugg, Michael Herrmann, Jens Lichtblau and Stefan Staheli. Coming across the line in second place are the French from La Rochelle. They hold on for second by the attacking Dutch team, who have to settle for third. And then it's going to be Breitenbrunn, looking like they're lining up for fourth place for Austria. And then it's going to be very, very close on the line. Will the green boat be able to just take it from yellow? It might well have done so. Wassersegelvereinigung have just stolen a place off Wannsee, who get a 6th. And 6th is actually Wannsee's worst finish in the regatta so far. I mean, it's the only other time they finished outside the top 3. It was a 5th place on Thursday. So we're going to try and speak to those guys from Wannsee in a moment, but that will come up. But it will be interesting to find out what went wrong for them in that race, because they've been so consistent in their other races. Bear in mind, winning here is not the be-all and end-all. It's about getting a top 7 finish. The top 7 of these 24 teams here in Porto Cervo secure a place to compete in the grand finals in Samoritz at the end of August. That's what really matters. But of course, there's a bit of ego and a bit of pride riding on the line in these races too.
Yeah, again, you're not going to obviously compete against all of these clubs when, of course, as we've just identified, there is only going to be those top few that will go through. But it is your chance to start to kind of scope out who's going to be a major threat. You've obviously got the Italians with Circolo della Vellabari, who previous winners of it. They won here as well. This is a comfortable place for them to. They feel very at home here, and again, you start to work out who could be your threats. But again, it's every time you go on the water, you want to win. It's plain and simple, isn't it? That competitive side of things. But there is, in a longer term strategy, is you need to get one of your qualification spots. You need to put yourself on that start line in San Moritz, and that's where the battle's going to really commence.
It's about being slow and steady with your approach. Obviously not being slow in the boat, but strong and stable. And
tortoise and hare.
More being the tortoise, less the hare. Not being so greedy, being patient, and just waiting your moments. And I'm always impressed by whenever we speak to Simone Ferraresi. The Italians are normally what you consider to be the red-blooded, hot-headed Europeans, but Ferraresi always seems so calm and collected and very together with his thoughts and emotions.
Well, again, you've got so many races, aren't we? Look, we're in flight 13 and going into this, and this is race 39. So all of the teams will have completed 13 races at the end of this. Well, there is no discard. There is no point to where you can just let that head gasket go. You've got to keep a lid on it. You've got to be able to reset. We know that at each mark, you could be going round in second place. It only takes the first boat to stuff up the mark and try and shoot the mark and put the brakes on, and everyone bundles up, and you could go from first, second, third, right down to sixth, seventh, and eighth. And so your race can turn around very quickly, and it's about that mental resilience, being able to reset and go through it. And if you get your head around that, and you're able to keep a fairly clean sheet, but also be able to just reset when the pressure really hits, then I think you're in a good place.
The Swedes, they're generally pretty level-headed. This is the team from Huvik's Boat Club. Victor Kukjerman, Per Alexandersson, Mikko Johnson and Johan Mosberg. But I believe that we have a chance of speaking to someone from the German team from Wannsee Yacht Club. Hello. And who am I speaking to?
Yes, this is Tim.
Hi, Tim. It's Andy here.
This is Tim. I'm the helmsman of the team. Hi.
So, Tim,
you're a bit hard to understand.
Tim, if you can hear me, you've had a fantastic regatta so far. You're lying in third place overall, but that was a difficult race for you. What was so hard about the race just now?
I think nothing special. The conditions are quite choppy, so you have to be careful not to stop the boat too much. And shortly after the start, we didn't manage that so well, so we maneuvered ourselves in a bit blocked situation, which was just a cause for not being in the top at the top mark. But in general, I think all the races are pretty hard, and yeah, we're really happy with our performance so far, and even with the place from the last race, we're still happy and looking forward to the next two races to finish here in off Sardinia.
Tim, can you hold the microphone as close to your mouth as possible, like a rap star would do? Thank you.
Yeah,
so
will do.
What are you going to do for the rest of the day? Because you're done with racing now, right? How are you going to enjoy your time in Costa Smeralda for the rest of the day?
Well, we haven't thought about it. We thought maybe there's going to be more races today, but when this was a final race, well, I think we're going to look at the beautiful landscape here, sit on the terrace and just relax a bit to be prepared for tomorrow morning.
And when you've managed to win these races, what do you think has been the winning move for you in the races where you've really done well?
The start is always very important, so if you get a clean shot from the starting line and you can do what you want to do on the top leg, then that's perfect. And it's also fine if you come second or third. If you're close to the other ones, you still have options left during the race. So for tomorrow, again, good starts and speed on the first leg. That's important.
And how much luck is involved at the windward mark, whether you get a penalty or not?
Difficult one. We managed to go through the regatta without a penalty on the top mark, so I'm pretty happy about that. I think it's always tight, because if you come from the outside, you want to take a tight lay to get the other boats not to tack inside. But as a result, if they can tack, then it's going to be a standing race at the top mark. So we try to stay out of it.
Well, Tim, I think that's a fantastic statistic that you haven't actually managed to get a penalty yet. So I wish you the best of luck with your remaining races tomorrow. And I hope you manage to keep a clean sheet around those windward marks and avoid penalties for the rest of the regatta. Congratulations and well done with your performance. Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
So that was Tim Elsner and his team representing Verein Seglerhaus am Wannsee. And we're going to go back shortly to the next race in this flight, back on board with the Swedish. And these are the Swedes we've seen the least of so far out on the racetrack. And they're in 18th place overall. They actually won the first race of their regatta back on Thursday. But they've only had one other finish in the top four, actually. So they've got a first and a second, and they've had a bunch of finishes that tended to be at the back of the fleet. So they, at the moment, are looking far out of contention for going through to the finals in St. Moritz, which is a shame for them. After they must have thought, after winning the first race of the regatta, then they must have thought, we're in with the shout here, but it hasn't worked out that way for them. So I'll just give you a rundown of the other teams that are going to be racing in this particular heat. It's going to be the Swedes we just talked about, Huvik's Boat Club. From France, we have Société de Regatte du Havre. We have Circolo della Verabari leading the series overall and are reigning champions from last year. They're the Italians. Sailing Club Nauticus from Lithuania. From Norway, we have Larvik Sailverening. From the Netherlands, KN and RV Muiden. From Poland, Odyssey Sailing Club. And from Switzerland, Regatta Club Bodensee, who are lying in second overall. So the interesting race for me will be between Boat 7, that's Regatta Club Bodensee, and Circolo della Verabari Boat 4. Boat 4 and Boat 7 are the two boats to watch.
So just looking at the wind and the conditions out on that water. Again, we've seen this fairly consistent 9, top of 9, sort of 10, 11 knots of breeze, and still out on that race course. We've got just coming up to about 11 knots of breeze. Fairly stable again. We have seen this breeze slowly clock round towards the right as the day's gone on. A little bit of a skewed, of course, it has moved around, but that's where we're starting to see this right become a little bit more favoritism. The start line, a little bit of a right-hand bias, but nothing really too significant. So you're going to start to define where you want to be going on this race course and where you're coming up. But again, this is that final race, Flight 13, Race 39.
The next race is presented by One Ocean Foundation. So 1 minute 20 to the start. No boats in shot other than the committee boat itself. And there with the overhead shot, we see the boats playing around some way below the line at the moment. So not lining up particularly early for this one. hard to see the pattern of play or which end of the line they want, but now it's beginning to become more apparent with less than 1 minute to go. It looks like most of the boats want the committee boat end of the line.
Yeah, they're all starting to bundle up into that right side, all starting to be a bit more protective, bows going down. We can see boat number 4, which is Circolo della Velabari, trying to hold the leeward boats that potentially go into a double tack and just going into high mode now to close those boats off, hold that position. So they've made it really clear of where they want to be. They want to be the boat coming off towards this pin end. Doesn't mean they will want to attack that mark, but it means they can hold their position, hold all the other boats in position until they want to hit that accelerator.
On board with the Swedish boat right now, and boat number 8 looking dangerously close to the line with just 10 seconds to go. That's the Dutch from Sweden, so the Dutch in a really difficult sticky bind there. Meanwhile, Circolo della Velabari able to accelerate along the line and turn the boat up whenever they want. Boat number 4 closest to us, they are the series leaders, the reigning champions of the Sailing Champions League, getting exactly the start that they wanted, and now they have to fight to be able to burn off some of the boats further up to windward, because boat number 2, the next boat up from them, also in a good controlling position, but also a great start further up the line by the, I can't quite tell what number it is, it's sort of the yellowy green colour, and it's Société des Regattes du Havre, the French team, with a fantastic start, middle right out of that line.
It surprised me there from the Italians. You can see the gap they've kind of created away from the Swedish boat, sort of positioning themselves down towards that left. You could see they were in a really commanding position. No one could put the bows down and accelerate until they did. And they went really early with a good 10 seconds to go, which ate up that distance they had towards that pin end. And because of that, we see the Swedes just hold off that little lane a little bit later on. And so, yes, now they're starting to creep bow forward. They've got that little bit of gap. But I potentially wouldn't have wanted to have lost that sort of distance and sat myself just up underneath that bow, because they still had commanding position of when to pull that trigger.
Yes, I mean, they pulled the trigger and there was certainly a maximum speed when they crossed the line, but they'd given away valuable distance to the right by doing so. And I think probably Ferrarese will be regretting that a little bit. I mean, they're still in a good position. They've still got good breeze, but they could have been in a much more controlling position than they are right now.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be detrimental to their race in any way with where they've come off from that line, but would have given them a little bit more. Look how much, and just glancing over that right shoulder, whether they've got that chance, whether they can get that tack in, when can they go? And in a way, this wouldn't be so much of a problem, if not spending more time looking over that back shoulder, and as soon as they go there, simultaneously now going, and potentially would have had the lead early on. Regatta Club Bodensee then just going in underneath them as well, and in quite a strong position when they come back across on starboard at that top mark. So again, yeah, could we now connect the dots a little bit from that start, and giving that distance away could end up creating a bit of a situation at this windward mark, but we'll find out as they approach in from this left side.
Further over to the right, we're on board with Huvik's Boat Club from Sweden. Sailing pretty nicely right now. Tobias Bergqvist steering that boat, and they are going along very nicely. But we're back now looking at the Italians fighting to get over the top of boat number 2. That's Huvik's Boat Club, who we're just on board with. So a good battle going on between those two boats, and some hard hiking going on board the Italian boat. And it looks like the Swedes are managing to edge up towards the Italians. So are the Italians able to keep their air clean there? And we see the starboard tackers beginning to come over. But the boat just out of picture now, ahead of the Italians, is Regatta Club Bodensee in tactically the strongest position right now. The Italians not in a bad place, but they might have a lot to do as they get closer to this swim of
I
mark.
was going to say, they're in a dangerous position. They're trying to put the bow down and roll over the Swedes, because they need to clear that, what we call a little safety bubble, that 25% safety bubble of them just down to leeward. They're going to have all these boats come rattling in on the right, and to pitch up and find a gap is going to be very difficult. The Swedes can hold them there. Of course, if they have to duck, they've got to provide space for them to go as well. But I think the Italians are going to get closed off at this mark pretty hard.
So maybe they're just going to have to fight their way through and accept they're going to take a penalty. Round goes Regatta Club Bodensee in the lead, followed by boat number 3, which is Société de Regatta du Havre, followed by boat number 5, Sailing Club Nauticus. But how's it going for the Italians? It seems like they've just about managed to get around.
They got round in fifth place there, but they were just right in front of the Norwegians, and whether the Norwegians felt they were impinged at that point, the attack didn't seem completely clear of their distance, but again, we'll see what the umpires think of that.
So is it going to be a clean rounding for the whole fleet?
Unheard of, isn't it?
almost today. So look how high the boat is over on far right. They look like they're in a terrible position when they come back over. Oh no, but it's Société de Regatta du Havre. They've been pulled out of the race, and so the French were OCS at the start line. But meanwhile, up at the front of the fleet, I think it's Regatta Club Bodensee that's actually in the lead.
So an early shower for the French team as they head off the race course, and will continue their route back. And a nice little jibe out here from Regatta Club Bodensee. Again, that early jibe out, the nice thing is when they come in towards this gate mark, they are going to be coming back across on starboard. It puts them on that inside track, where the difficult position here for the Sailing Club Nauticus, they are, the Lithuanians here, going to have to pick their way through and look for that inside line. But with the Dutch team, KNZ and RV Muden, they're going to hold that inside line on that gate mark. So looking at the breeze again, fairly steady. We've got 11 knots consistent still across that race course. But very, very close.
And we're going to see if we can get hold of Hinnock out on the water. Hinnock, can you hear us? And if you can, what do you know about the OCS situation?
Yes, I hope you can hear me. It was quite late pulling out the yellow boat. It's the second downwind now, and it's the first downwind now, and I think, pulling out them earlier would be nicer for them. But as you saw on the start, was really close, really tight, and I saw the individual recall coming up, and no boat return, so it was probably the French boat coming out and now pulling up the race.
And Hinnock, which has the best side for the breeze on the second beat, do you think?
On the downwind, we saw, same as before, the left upwind side, because the rock shape here influenced the wind a lot, and we see all the gusts coming from the left-hand side, and the right, like in the drone picture, a little bit more lulls. So we again see most of the boats now going left. But we see a small change now on the right side. It's more lift, and maybe some more wind coming in, but it looks pretty even for me now.
Okay, Hinnock, thank you very much. And we've got a bit of a split going on at the moment. We've got boat number 8, KNZ and RV Muiden, coming out to the left-hand side, but in the top of picture, in the distance, it's still Regatta Club Bodensee who holds the lead. And it looks like quite a healthy lead right now.
Yeah, it's looking pretty comfortable for that. And this, where it sees them at the moment, I'm sure they will squeeze up a little bit further up onto this leaderboard, but this would keep them up into second place overall after this. This is the last race, which would fill out the final flight, flight 13. We talked about that they've kind of gained a couple of flights just to ensure that going into tomorrow, due to the bit of uncertainty of what this rain's going to bring and what the forecasts are telling us, then it leaves us 2 flights to complete and who's going to come out on top. So it'll be quite an interesting one. The sailors will come off the water. They'll reflect a little bit on how their racing was going. Sit in and around the club, just try and clear out what's happening on the those last 2 races. But you've got 2 more races to either secure 2 points or 16 points. So there's quite a big range still to move through.
On the right of picture, Cercolo della Velabari. They've had their difficult moments in this race, but they seem to be holding second place in this race behind Regatta Club Bodensee. So it's the top 2 boats in the series overall that are the top 2 boats in this race right now. It's just that their positions are reversed. But the way things stand, the points are tightening up. So this is an important one for Regatta Club Bodensee to be leading if they want to win this qualifier, because they are getting closer and closer to the points of Cercolo della Velabari. Regatta Club Bodensee on to their tack there and about to round the windward mark for the final time with a very, very nice lead for the Swiss. Up goes the grey and white Jenica. Out goes the pole. Kite snaps into action, and behind them are the Italians, Cercolo della Velabari, and a very tight battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th coming up behind. So it looks like it could get busy at the windward mark coming up. Let's keep with the windward mark for a while the Italians go round in 2nd place. That will cement their position at the top of the leaderboard, provided they can hold on to that. And then it starts getting a lot busier as they come round the windward mark for 3rd, 4th and 5th. Round is boat 2, and that's Huvik's Boat Club from Sweden. Boat 8 is the Dutch. Boat 5 is Sailing Club Nauticus from Lithuania, followed by Boat 1, which is Larvik Seilforening from Norway. So very, very close racing, and we've seen a lot of place changes down the final run. So these boats aren't secure yet. The one with the most to lose is the 3rd place Huvik's Boat Club in boat number 2 with the red sails. In a good defensive position on the pink boat, Sailing Club Nauticus from Lithuania, though. And then just look at the gaps to 1st and 2nd. Yacht Regatta Club Bodensee from Switzerland onto Port Jibe, and really stretching their legs away from the rest of the pack right now. The team, skipper by Massimo Soriano, with the crew Tobias Rudlinger, René Oth and Stefan Zurflu. Doing Regatta Club Bodensee proud and showing that they can sail on the open sea as well as on the lake, the Bodensee lake that they're used to sailing on normally. All look so straightforward as they sail the final few meters down to the committee boat and across the finish line. One of the most comfortable leads we've seen all day, and nothing very remarkable about their race. It's very straightforward. I suspect if we did the analysis on that race, they probably would have done the fewest maneuvers, or amongst the boats with the fewest maneuvers. High five. And nice way to finish the afternoon for the Swiss. Oh, yeah. Got all the high fives in. That's good. Nearly missed the last one. Across the finish line come Cercolo della Velabari. It looked close for them at times. It looked a little bit dangerous at the windward mark. It looked like they were going to come into that windward mark with no rights, but they somehow managed to get around in 4th or 5th. And somewhere down that first run managed to get their way up into 2nd or 3rd place. So good consistency, good ability to chip away one boat at a time
Across the line in third place, the third Swedish boat of the 3 Swedish crews here. Huvik's Boat Club coming across in third place, followed by the only Lithuanian team, Sailing Club Nauticus, but it's a photo finish with the Dutch, so hard to say who's come out on top between Lithuania and the Netherlands. And then coming across for 6th place in this race, Larvik Sailforening from Norway. Somewhere at the back, that's Larvik there we're looking at. They come across in 6th. And then in 7th will be the Polish Odyssey Sailing Club, and then the French won't sail across the finish line. They were already pulled out of the race. Société de Regatta du Havre were over the line early and weren't permitted to finish the race. So Flight 13, race 3. Straightforward win for Regatta Club Bodensee, but that's not been the typical run of play today, has it, Corky? I mean, we've seen typically very tight races, and okay, so the leader gets away quite often, but it was quite a comfortable 2nd place for Italy. We don't often see that.
No, a lot of the time there's been that big bundle towards the windward mark. That first windward mark is generally where it really sort of shatters out that race course. The mistakes come in, people try and push a little bit more. But yeah, that's been a mixed bag, and again, it's all about keeping it clean. You know, Odyssey Sailing Club just going across the line now to complete this race. As say, the French headed home for early showers after that OCS in that last race, and that rounds up Flight 13. So some great racing, but again, it just shows how the level of the sailing in the one design boats all being pushed on a short race course. You've not got a huge amount to manoeuvre, and that's why they can pack so quickly at that windward mark. That mistake creeps in at that point, and that can suddenly shake up your whole race course pretty quickly.
So we saw the top 2 teams in the regatta competing in that race, but it's still Cercolo della Velabari, and we'll go to the leaderboard now, and you can see it for yourself. Cercolo della Velabari from Italy got a 2nd in that race, and Regatta Club Bodensee got a 1st in that race. But it's the Italians that are still 1st overall with 30 points. Regatta Club Bodensee, their 1st place lifts them to within 2 points of the overall lead, followed by Varane Seglerhaus and Vanzi, got a 1st and then a 6th place. We spoke to their helmsman Tim just now, not too concerned about the 6th, and 3rd place, still very respectable for them. Let's just trickle down to 7th place. So holding that 7th qualifying spot, remember it's only the top 7 go through, it's Austria's Yacht Club Breitenburen. So despite the OCS disqualification earlier, just holding on to a qualifying place. And then breathing down their necks, 1 place outside qualifying is the Dutch RR and ZV Massenroer. A bit of a sort of a ho-hum day for them, and a last place in Flight 12, not what they wanted, but they're still very much in the fight for qualifying, as are the Estonians Isti, Match Race and Leet, just 2 points off 7th place. And the fast improving Czech Republic Truk JK Poulsen 1-1-3 from their last 3 races, 53 points, just 4 points off qualifying. So that is a possibility for them. And the Swedes, Saro Boat Club, 2 second places. Well, if they can get 2 more second places tomorrow, maybe they could squeeze through into the top 7. And then it's a bit of a gap back to Wessex Exile Sailing Club from Great Britain. A 7th place in their last race of the day. That gives them a mountain to climb, bearing in mind that we've only got 2 flights of racing tomorrow. We've got a poor forecast. We've got the possibility of rain, and that could affect the racing tomorrow. But two more races for them to be able to redeem themselves. Then going further down, we've got the Dutch KNZ and RV Muiden. They have their moments. They got a 2nd place yesterday, but not bad today, a 5.435, but not quite enough to get them into qualifying position, where you need to be sort of averaging a little bit better than 3rd and 4th place in all the races to be able to go through to St. Moritz later on this year. So Corky, it's been pretty fast, efficient turnaround of racing today. We've had the breeze to do it. We haven't had the sunshine, so it's not the typical blue skies and blue water that we see for Porto Cervo. So the weather is a little bit unusual, but the racing has still been very solid today.
Yeah, no, I think that's how the format works. You've mentioned several times Matilda being out there, which is the base for all the sailors. The ribs, you know, the teams are all there. The rotation's all ready. It allows everyone to be in place, set up, next team's ready, and that's where we instantly go to those onboard cameras, and you just see bedlam as 4 sailors are climbing off, 4 sailors are coming back, and they just literally jump from one boat to another, put their team flag on the back of the boat, and bang, we're into racing. And so quick turnaround, quick racing, and again, full credit to the race committee. 39 races completed. We talk about flight numbers. Well, we're flight 13, but that's 39 races completed. You know, that's
incredible.
It's quite
in 3 days. That's pretty darn good. So we wrap up the end of day 3 of the One Oceans Sailing Champions League qualifier here in Porto Cervo. One Oceans being in relation to the One Oceans Foundation, something set up by Yacht Club Costa Smeralda to draw greater attention to the need to look after our oceans, and a reminder that there is no planet B. We've only got planet A to live on. If you want to run back through the races, and maybe you're related or you're friends with one of the sailors, maybe you're from one of the 24 sailing clubs represented here, you can check it all out on sapsailing.com. You can rewind the races and run through them at different speeds. You can look at the number of maneuvers, the average speed of the boats. I've seen some of the sailors using it when they've been on board the good ship Matilda to review their own racing and tactics. You can do the same and decide if your club is doing well, or if there's a message you want to send them overnight and tell them to focus on doing fewer maneuvers and just sail the J70 faster through the water. I'm sure they'll appreciate that. You can also watch the racing back on YouTube, so look for the Sailing Champions League channel on YouTube, on Facebook, all the usual channels. We will be back for racing the final 2 flights at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. From Mark Corky Rhodes, from myself, Andy Rice, we hope you've enjoyed today's racing. Join us for the final 2 flights tomorrow.